evening, and welcome to episode 7 of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Good evening, Mark.
Hello, Russell.
This is fun, isn't it?
I've got mixed feelings about this one, Russell.
Yes, for you listeners at home, this is running absolutely perfectly and smoothly. But for us here, we've been struggling slightly with some technical gremlins. So we recorded an entire 3 hours of an episode, and then discovered that it was entirely unusable due to some sort of weird sound occurring on my voice. Absolutely no good. And it's a shame because we absolutely rip-snorting zingers throughout, wasn't there, Mark? It was
and now I'm going to have to pretend to be surprised by every joke you make and every new revelation you have. So there's going to be a real test of my acting skill. But also, Russ, let's not bury the lead here. This episode is awful. And as our recording went on, we got angrier and angrier that we were making ourselves watch this episode. So for you to drop me a line saying, hold up, old chum, we're going to have to do it all over again, was actually it was genuinely dispiriting. I mean, I remember saying in the last record that this is the first time when I got to the third viewing that it felt like a chore. Yes. Don't worry, Russ. I will say this again in a few seconds when I start pretending that I haven't said this before. But I said it was a chore. So the fact that we're now about to watch it for a fourth time is unfair. That's it. There you go. It's unfair. And I appreciate it's only us making us do this.
Yeah.
But it feels cruel.
It's a cruel and unusual punishment, having to watch the worst episode of Tomorrow's World I've ever seen.
Yes.
I feel like a bit like Sisyphus.
Absolutely.
We rolled that episode to the very top of the hill,
it did.
And then it's gone straight back down again.
Oh,
and we're back to the beginning.
And all we did was mock the gods. We don't deserve this.
I mean, this episode, it's a very late episode. It comes from the 3rd of April 2002.
Ooh, well, let's say, I was about to interrupt, sorry, because you're right, because once again, we picked an event to see how Tomorrow's World would commemorate or celebrate or report on that event. So this is a few days after the Queen Mother died, passed away?
Yes, she died on the 30th of March 2002, and this is from 3 days later, 3rd of April. I should say maybe it's the Queen Mother's ghost that's haunting us.
I hadn't thought about that.
God bless you, right. Mom. Stop messing up my Zoom.
God bless you, Mom.
I looked into it to see whether she had any science or technology connections in the same way that old Maggie did. Absolutely none whatsoever. No science awards, or I don't think she opened any labs. I couldn't find anything to do with science whatsoever. Apart from there's some. When she died, there was some discussion about whether she had special DNA because she was so old. That was the only scientific article I could find about the Queen Mother.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
The thing I did find out though is that she, I already kind of knew this, but a heavy drinker, the Queen Mother. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm raising a glass of cheap vino in a celebration of that. But she, apparently she would drink a gin and dubonnet at noon, red wine with lunch, a port and martini at 6 p.m. and 2 glasses of champagne over dinner every single day.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
I like the fact you got a dubonnet as well. That's very sweet.
How do you pronounce that then?
It's dubonnet, darling.
Is it?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
I assumed it's some sort. Is it not a Scottish drink then? Is it French?
It's probably neither.
Yeah, so anyway, there's not much we can talk about the Queen Mother. I would suggest, though, that there's a lot of these things in this episode kind of would appeal to the Queen Mother.
Yeah, there's a couple. Actually, I was laughing because I immediately thought of these things that would have no appeal to her whatsoever. But you are right. There are a couple of things in here that I'm sure she'd. She'd love to see a horse thrashed.
Exactly. Yeah. We've got horse thrashing whips and for firefighting. So she might be interested in that because of the Windsor Castle fire, mightn't she?
That's true.
Something about security. I'm sure she was had a security detail.
Yeah, she definitely wanted to keep people out. That much I knew.
So, 3rd of April 2002. This means it's from the final ever series of Tomorrow's World. It limped on until around August, I think, of this year. And then they made no more episodes of it. And then it was officially cancelled in the following January. You know, having watched this episode, you can sort of see why.
Yeah, absolutely.
By this point, it's terrible.
It's so disheartening to watch this. I know, obviously, our previous kind of go-to reference for a bad episode was the very first one we actually watched for this podcast, the one from 1981, which has a kind of a depressive bleakness surrounding it. But actually, that is a proper episode of Tomorrow's World, right? That it's overly dry. It lies, obviously, about several things. The visual language is depressing, and what they talk about probably lacks a certain vision. And actually, there's a kind of a sense of Britain on the decline. But the program is strong. And we joke about it being bad because it doesn't have that kind of the elan of the Tomorrow's World that we grew up with and that we've seen in earlier years. It has that kind of sense of joy about it, or a sense of excitement. But this is a completely different program. By that I mean this doesn't even feel like Tomorrow's World anymore. It was so disheartening to watch this the first time around. I watched it with my wife, what now feels like 7.5 months ago, and I think I will probably reference when we discussed this before, but I'll say it now. When we recorded this before, Ross, we were both saying how we have no doubt whatsoever, we did not watch this program.
No,
there's no way. We had long stopped watching it. It had faded for a while. So to see this late era Tomorrow's World is really dispiriting. I mean, part of the reason we did this podcast is, it's fun and we like to have a laugh, but it is because we really enjoyed watching this program when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And it is fun to go back and rewatch it. Except for this one. This is the first time that, there are segments in this that actually made us angry. And I'm sure they will now, again. And so, if that's the kind of thing, listener, if that's the kind of thing you're really excited about, I've got good news, my friend, because we're not only angry about this episode anymore, we're angry about being forced to watch it again. So disheartening.
Oh, yeah, I would no more watch this than I would watch, an episode of Watchdog. Or the one show or something like that. It's really sort of descended to that sort of level, isn't it? Just a bland consumer program, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So well, with that kind of introduction, should we get stuck in?
How exciting!
All right.
Roll credits.
Roll Roger.
Hello and welcome to Tomorrow's World live from the BBC Television Centre. I'm in the Top of the Pops Star Bar, where one of these partygoers is carrying a potentially lethal weapon. And tonight, using this device, we're going to find out who it is.
In an action-packed programme, we'll be reporting on the latest stories from the worlds of science, medicine and technology.
I'll be testing a new bit of Swedish firefighting equipment that carves its way into burning buildings, and it's saving firemen's lives.
We go behind the headlines to investigate the worrying rise of diabetes in children.
And here's a special piano that can write down the music as you compose. And there's a special person to play it, Mylene from the band Hearsay.
Right, Mark, what do you want to lay into first?
Great question, Russ. Hey, look, let's start with the positives, okay?
Yep.
Let's start with the positives.
All right.
We've got Roger Black, famous British athlete, Olympian. I don't think he won the gold medal. You'll tell me later, I'm sure, but I think he was like a world champion, wasn't he?
Yes.
And he's not bad. And this will be a theme that runs through this episode. Our slagging off of this episode shouldn't necessarily shine a light on the quality of the presenters whatsoever. They're all pretty decent folk.
Yeah.
And Roger Black, full of enthusiasm, right? He bursts through the doors. Can't wait to welcome us to Tomorrow's World. Starts off on the right foot, Russ. But then, I don't know, there's something really... Being outside the Top of the Pop Star Bar, I don't think is quite the amazing draw Roger Black and Tomorrow's World think this is. And the clientele he walks by outside the Star Bar, I'm going to be honest with you, Russ, they didn't really look like stars to me. And it actually just looks like it's some kind of really boring, bashed up corridor in... the BBC Television Centre. Or does he call it BBC? No, he says the BBC Television Centre.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. All right, almost a good start. But then, and we'll come back to the credits. No, let's do the credits now, actually, because then this is when I think things get really worrying, because obviously they use, hey, one of our running jokes is that every single theme tune that we hear is obviously the best one, is absolute stone cold classic, and is in our heads for the following few weeks until we watch another episode. This really is a classic theme tune that they have absolutely butchered.
Yes.
And shortened, taken away all the qualities that made the original, really such a powerful, anthem for the program. And then normally, obviously, I would then describe the images that we see, but we don't have any.
One of my favourite bits normally, Mark, is you going through the imagery of the opening credits.
Absolutely, you're very kind. I think I bring a lot of charisma to it, so that's why I think it works. And it's certainly not a long list of bullet points as I jot them down. But there's nothing like that here. No. What we have is this kind of horrible kind of, I don't know, it's like they filmed a lava lamp out of focus, or it's like, I don't know if it's trying to ape sun flares, but it's just yellow, red, and white, just kind of undulating around the screen that says nothing.
No.
So, in fact, it's worse than that. It's the absence of something. To my mind, you are totally aware that you are not seeing something iconic. And then eventually it ends up with, off to the center, just in kind of relatively small font, just the word Tomorrow's World. It is shameful, actually. It's shameful, Russ. And the thing is, because they are tying it to a classic theme tune, it's just drawing more attention to how lost this program has become.
Yeah. I feel like there's...
Do you know, I was going to carry on there, Russ, and I realised you said nothing. So go on, please do. Please chime in. Because I was about to go off on the set, but no, your turn.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like the reuse of the 80s theme tune favourite is a deliberate choice, because I feel like that there was probably a sense that Tomorrow's World had sort of strayed slightly from its original way it was presented. And this series is a kind of attempt to recreate that. So they've brought back studio demonstrations and things like this, whereas in the sort of late 90s, everything was done outside. So I feel like that they go, right, we want to go back to how Tomorrow's World when it was good. So we want to sort of kind of conjure up good associations with the past, but it just doesn't work at all, because the comparison is that this is terrible and compared to what you remember. The graphics, I assumed that what was going to happen was that was going to be something out of focus, and then as the titles went on, it would come into focus and it would be some sort of impressive thing that we can look at. But it's not. It's completely unfocused. It sums up the program perfectly. It's completely unfocused. It's
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And here's the thing: those graphics could be under any title of any other BBC. They could be the Watchdog theme. They could be the Watchdog titles. It could be the one show.
It could be the weather.
Now. I mean, it could be the weather. I mean, it could be anything. It could be like Inside Out or whatever. That, London politics on the sun. Like, it's that kind of cheap, lazy, means nothing. And it's like they are aping old Tomorrow's World without understanding old Tomorrow's World.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we cut to Kate Humble in the studio. Very good, very presentable. And then the studio is another new level of awfulness, of just of awful execution.
Yeah.
So as I look at her now, with the screen paused, they have a ascending set of columns, each holding atop it a really cheap. I think I likened them before to Matsui, the Dixon's own brand, that mini plasma screens with these kind of horrible, they're just ugly TVs actually. There's this horrible kind of rounded plastic underneath with the speakers going.
It looks almost like they got arses, doesn't it? So like TVs with arses.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what it looks like. I'll try and include that on Instagram. And then next to her, or behind those, there are a series, and it gets worse later when she walks down them. But there are a series of vertical kind of neon light, neon column tubes.
Bit like toy lightsabers sort of thing.
Yeah, standing, on their end, but sticking up. And they're all angled incorrectly. And as we will see later, worse than that, they're not even the same height.
No.
It is just the poorest, laziest execution, which it doesn't just smack of like, oh, we didn't have the budget to do this. It's like they didn't have the heart to do it properly. fine. I appreciate you may not have a huge budget anymore, but that does not mean that you allow this shoddiness to happen, because it just smacks of it's to me, it's symptomatic of, or symbolic perhaps, of like some of what we're going to complain about later on.
And it's just so cluttered, isn't it? Like, I mean,
it's really busy.
You've got a program where sort of each segment is focused on one thing, but you have all of this busyness going on behind her, which is entirely unnecessary and really detrimental to. It just looks a mess. It looks like she's standing in a branch of maplins. You know.
Yeah. Do you know what? we have started this recording, Russ, hotter than we started the last one.
I'm fuming, Mark.
I know. I am freaking angry, and I wasn't. I was only angry at the end of the last episode, as it all began to kind of sit heavy on my heart, Russ. But this time round, like, not only am I angry, I'm doing this again. But now I'm just like, no prisoners. No. You know, I will forgive a few things, but no prisoners. Another good observation that you made in the notes, Russ, is that, you know, we start outside the Top of the Pop Star Bar. And I'm desperate that we don't tread on the toes of, you know, other much more reputable, high quality podcasts like Chart Music.
Yes.
But it's interesting that, because these are shows that are, you know, in our heads, we're always kind of slightly intrinsically linked to Tomorrow's World, Top of the Pops. They're always on a Thursday. And here they are again, you know, if only to prove us right. And yet what we have now is two shows at the same time that are in this death spiral, this terminal paso doble, as they just both kind of careen towards cancellation, only stopping on the way to reveal just how inconsequential and disconnected they are from whatever it was that they were supposed to be. I mean, Top of the Pops really was supposed to be the place where, like, that was your one opportunity during the week to see the big bands and musicians of the day play music in your living room. And Tomorrow's World really was supposed to be this amazing opportunity to see how amazing human ingenuity was, and how hopeful, you know, that our future might be. And by 2002, they're gone, basically. You know, all bar dotting the I's and crossing the T's, they're done. You know, put a fork in it, and they start at roughly the same time and they finish at roughly the same time. And it's just really easy. It's interesting to see them even now kind of closely connected. And yet Tomorrow's World's looking up to Top of the Pops, because Top of the Pops has a Star Bar.
The Star Bar is a fairly recent addition to the BBC at this time. It coincided with a refurb of Top of the Pops. Yes, it opened in October 2001, so it's only been open a few months. But I've the executive producer of Top of the Pops was a bloke called Chris Cowie at the time. I've got this quote from him. He says, "The Star Bar will be a glorified green room, and it'll be a great place to be. A place where artists can relax, hang out, bring their entourage, girlfriends, boyfriends, lawyers, and rub shoulders with the stars." It's the mention of lawyers there that I find interesting.
Yeah. Well, the only people in that queue that we saw were the lawyers, Russ.
I mean, they didn't even look important enough to be lawyers.
No, they didn't. They were not that cool.
Just on Herberts they pulled in off the street. Yeah, but it's a bit of that. You know, the BBC does this quite a lot, doesn't it? It does like sort of cross-platform promotion where it will put two of its programs together, which I think is what they're going for here. But it's the Star Bar is just it didn't last because. The problem they had with it was that it was actually it was a converted BBC canteen, and it was a proper working bar rather than being a TV studio. So it had none of the you know, the things that you need in a TV studio for, you know, the sound to come out correctly and things like that. So it was just permanently sort of, well, it's like filming a pub basically. It was just always noisy, and nobody could ever hear what each other was saying and things like that. So yeah, it just didn't work.
So trying to rip off, you know, TFI Friday, but like not bothering putting in the legwork.
Yeah. Of course, the thing is, TFI Friday, they were sensible. They made sure they had a gantry, Mark, didn't they?
Oh, that's true.
What you need with these programs is a gantry.
Yeah. That's what the last episode understood.
Anything else to slag off? Oh, yeah, no, hang on. There's one more thing that really got to me is when they're running through the coming up section.
The bait to entice us.
Yes,
reel us in, Russ. Yeah.
They're using Mylene Klass as bait.
Oh, yeah, poor Mylene.
This program
the dessert after all your greens.
Yeah. This people are only going to watch this program if there's a celebrity on it. Let's get a celebrity in, and keep her till the end of the program so people watch. The idea that people will only watch a program if there's a celebrity on it, it was around this time that became the way that people made TV programs, and it's
the new orthodoxy.
Yeah. And it drives me nuts, to be honest, Mark. I don't think there needs to be celebrity involvement in every program. I'd rather have an expert on a program about science and technology. I know nothing against Mylene,
well,
but
that's why you and I are men outside of time.
But first, since September the 11th, security in public places has come under close scrutiny. Just last week, an undercover investigation into security at US airports disclosed a massive failure to detect knives, guns and simulated explosives. And it's not just airports that have problems. Increasingly, nightclubs and restaurants are having to take security more seriously. But that could change with the help of a new, highly sensitive, vibrating metal detector. Its inventor is Robert Adams. Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Now, tell us what's so special about this metal detector.
OK, well, up till now, normally what happens is, say at an airport, you're screened for metallic objects using a metal detector.
Yeah, we all recognise those, yeah.
And then for non-metallic objects, you're normally patted down by hand. What I wanted to do was to design a product that would do both things at once.
So you can pat down, you can feel everything through your fingers.
If you pass it over metal, you've got dexterity on your fingers, and obviously...
So what happens when you pass it over metal? Does it... Oh, it vibrates.
Exactly.
And it's very discreet as well, presumably.
Very, yes.
So none of the whistles and bells, you can just whisk somebody off quietly. Well, we're going to put this to the test because we've got Roger in the Star Bar. How's it going over there, Roger?
Well, here we are, Kate, and Eddie, our security guard, is already frisking. Now, he's going to give me the old dodgy signal if he's found somebody, and as you can see, he's using his hands very quickly. That's what this really does. And using his fingers to test if there's anything non-metallic, and I'm looking for... Oh, there it is, the old signal. Excuse me, sir, I'm just going to have to stop you. Eddie, where are you looking?
In the right shoe, Roger.
Down here?
Yep.
OK. Oh, well, yes, well, you certainly found something, didn't you, sir? What's this going on here? Here we are. Well, this is definitely a potentially lethal weapon, as you can see, and very, very illegal.
A metal detector, but it's in a glove. Not a bad invention, I don't think.
No, it's not, no. I think part of the problem to me is that there's a bit of a kind of a tonal disconnect. So this episode's from April 2002, and right at the beginning of this segment, Kay Humble starts talking about 9/11, which was, 7 months before. And it's astonishing, to my mind, it's astonishing that we're watching a program that's nearly 20 years old, where 9/11 has already happened. But at that time, and not to joke about it, at that time, obviously... it would have been it was still a raw subject, and the idea of airport security would have been really something that people were taking very seriously. And, I did my little research, and obviously this only happened, this episode is like 4 months after Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, failed to blow up a plane by lighting up his shoes. So, and it's a really powerful, emotive topic to introduce this subject. That ends with like a comedy bit with, and I mean this nicely, a tubby bouncer called Eddie from the North. I don't know why I mentioned the North, but he's from Newcastle or in and around that area. Eddie, write in, tell us where you're from. And then you have these kind of, this whole bit where like Roger Black is pretending to be kind of a 1950s Bobby, what's all this now, sir? It's just like, so what the hell is this? Is this about, genuinely, why mention 9/11 if you're going to end up with, this kind of comedy routine outside the Star Bar?
Not to mention the fact that Pink's Get This Party Started is playing in the background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What a memorial. And there's that whole bit, because like the actual bit where Kate is interviewing Robert, who's the inventor, who I have to say, now having watched this 4 times, I love to bits.
Yeah, I think Robert is the breakout star of this episode, I think.
He's just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
He is an utter delight. His enthusiastic high at the beginning, and then the way he kind of pushes back the hair behind his ear, which I always associate with our friend Chris Terry, who had a way with the ladies. And one of the weapons in his arsenal was the way he would huck the curtains behind his ears, and they would be all a swoon and agog at his luscious looks.
Yeah.
I think one of my bitter regrets as an adult is that Chris cuts his hair.
Yes,
So I think-
yeah.
yeah.
I've always,
it's like,
I mean, I don't see him that often, but I always think, oh, what a shame, whatever I do.
when you have weapons like that, Russ, you can't keep them holstered.
Exactly, yeah.
And he's like that, and he's there. As we said last time, he's very proud of the Rolex Submariner he's bought. He wants to show that off to the camera. But I also think he's kind of. I think he thinks Kate's flirting with him. But there's even a bit where it comes back from the whole hilarious bit at the Star Bar, and he's just kind of leaning on the table, smiling at the camera because he's just having he's living his best life.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I have no problem with Rob. Having said that. Again, why introduce 9/11 if you're going to have Britain's friendliest, nicest man, coming on, clearly having a great time, and then have this whole bit with Eddie the bouncer. And, and by the way, who Eddie at one point is kind of patting down this woman who clearly wants nothing to do with any of this. She looks horrendously uncomfortable.
Yeah, you wonder how she made it into the queue in the first place. I don't know whether they just herded her over there because they wanted, a bit of variety in the.
I reckon they'd already let her
crowd.
into the bar because obviously you would, and then they had to ask her to go back outside to make the queue look in some way starish.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's a lawyer. I don't know.
Once Eddie has identified the perp, he throws him into an arm lock behind his back.
Yeah. He doesn't know. By the way, he doesn't know what this metal is.
No,
he does not know anything.
He could be
about
wearing
this man,
foil
but
socks
absolutely,
for all we know.
Exactly correct. But he's immediately wrenching his shoulder out of its socket.
Yeah,
very aggressive.
And this, I don't know. I can't. Has this bloke been paid to do this? Is he just somebody who was in the bar? Is he a runner?
I think he's a runner.
I don't know.
He's a runner.
But he's a kind of slightly alternative looking bloke. Sort of bloke who looks like he might listen
kind
to
of grungy.
Might listen to Limp Bizkit or some 41 or whatever.
New
Blink
Punk or whatever it's
182.
called. Yeah. Oh, look at you! Look at you listing all these bands you love so much.
Mouth.
Oh yeah.
But he behaves really. I mean, maybe because he's weirded out by the fact he's just been thrown into an arm lock. But he behaves very odd. Like he won't give Roger Black any eye contact, and he doesn't, and he remains completely silent. But yeah, he's a very strange chap.
Do you know what? It just dawned on me. We didn't mention this last time, but I have a new theory, Russ. What if they accidentally, genuinely did catch someone who was about to go on a stab rampage?
Oh, maybe.
And maybe he just feels like, oh, this isn't. Not only have I been caught, I've been caught live on TV.
I'm caught live on TV by a renowned athlete.
Yeah, I can't run away.
No,
he's going to catch me.
Speaking of Roger Black, I'll give you a quick quick rundown of what he's about. So he's got Roger Black MBE. He was born on the 31st of March, 1966.
So he's just had his birthday.
So he has just had his birthday. So his birthday was a day after the Queen Mother died. I hope it didn't ruin his birthday too much. I hope he wasn't too much of a fan. He was born in Gosport in Hampshire. And has a twin sister who was born on the same day as him, called Julia. He attended Portsmouth Grammar School, so another grammar school presenter. I reckon we're about 80% grammar school people that we've had so far, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was obviously running. 400 metres was his speciality, and he competed for us in the Olympics a couple of times. He got a bronze at 92 in Barcelona. And 2 silvers in Atlanta in 96.
I remember the silvers, yeah.
Didn't get any golds in the Olympics, but he got a couple of Commonwealth golds in 1986. But yeah, after this, well, as I said, the world of celebrity TV started, so he cashed in on that. So he was on Strictly Come Dancing in 2004. I can't believe Strictly Come Dancing has been going for that long.
I find that that is shocking to me.
Yeah,
because that it is as old as 17 years has been going at least. I think it's madness.
Yeah. And we made it to the final of Celebrity MasterChef in 2006.
That's been going that long as well.
Yeah. I'll tell you about Celebrity MasterChef. The thing that annoys me is that they've never had Lloyd Grossman as one of the celebrities on Celebrity MasterChef.
But the thing is, like, surely you can't have someone on Celebrity MasterChef who has their name and face on a jar of sauce.
But that'd be amazing. He just did all of his meals. He just tipped out of a jar.
Just had it. Yeah, like just rolls a suitcase in because I don't know which one I'm going to pick today, guys.
Looks like it's pasta sauce again. Also, And this won't come as a surprise to you, Mark, because I said it last time. I always used to get Roger Black confused with the javelinist, Steve Backley.
Yes, you did. Yes, I remember you telling me this, and I remember getting angry at you last time.
And they don't look anything like each other. It must just be that Backley contains the word black.
So, some of the letters required to make black. Yeah.
But anyway, I looked this up to see whether this was a common thing. Turns out that
you can surprise me.
Turns out that they own a company together, Mark.
Which I find astonishing. Go on.
They own a company called Backley Black, which I don't know whether that's an AC/DC reference. If I was them, if I advertised on TV, I would use that in the adverts. Backley Black! That'd be good, wouldn't it? It's some sort of, it's one of those corporate sort of nonsense businesses where they claim that they can teach people in businesses to think like an Olympian, and that will somehow improve how they run their businesses. Yeah. So, it's a sort of thing that probably you'd spend half a day in a room with a flip chart and they chat to you, I guess.
I don't think Steve Backley ever won a gold medal. And why they don't call it Blackley, I don't know. I think I made that point last time as well. Why did they call it, was it Backley Black? Call yourself Blackley. I just don't think that either of them won a gold medal in any Olympics.
I mean,
there we go. He won 2 silvers and a bronze, which obviously is a phenomenal achievement and much better than anything I've ever done in my life. But, not maybe my first pick.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, what do these lads know about anything if they've only won silvers?
Absolute rubbish.
Our chum Robert, would you like to know how his handheld metal detectors progressed?
Yeah, because we've barely talked about that, actually, to be honest. So we should describe, I know you mentioned it's it is like a Nintendo Power Glove, but with a metal detector in. And the idea is that you could discreetly have a vibration in your hand if you come across metal, rather than a beep, which Eddie's example there is that it's good in a nightclub because you're never going to hear the beep anyway.
Yeah.
That's Robert's invention. Yeah, go on, tell me, how did it go? How did it go for him?
Well, Adam's metal detectors still very much going strong. Adam being his surname, obviously, he's not a different bloke called Adam. It's Robert Adams, his name is. Yes, he's based in sunny Crowborough, which at least one of our listeners is from. So, hello, Matt Birch. Get yourself down to Adam's Metal Detectors. We'll probably give you a discount for being local. So they sell online. You can buy all sorts of different handheld metal detectors. Those sort of like wand ones that you quite often see in airports. They sell. But yes, you can indeed still buy this glove. Or it might even be an improved version, I'm not sure. But you can get one on their website for a mere £118.
And how 118, how does that compare to like your traditional kind of stick one?
Your stick one ones are more expensive, actually, funnily enough.
Are they more expensive?
They are, yeah. I mean, I think he's got one on there that's nearly £300. I guess maybe they're probably more powerful or something like that, maybe. So that's why they're more expensive.
Speaker into beep, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well done, Robert. He's keeping himself in Rolexes.
He's probably got a whole wall full of Rolexes now, hasn't he? I wonder.
That's how it works, Russ. You get a wall of them.
I wonder what his hair's like now. Probably got a bit. He's probably a bit of a silver fox now, I reckon.
Do you think he settled down with someone?
Someone who looks exactly like Kate Humble.
Oh.
Firefighters around the world risk their lives every day of the week, so any invention that can make their work safer is to be welcomed. The Swedes have developed an extinguisher which is saving lives. It's been brought to the Lancashire Fire and Rescue Training Centre for them to try out. Before we put the device through its paces, I joined the new recruits for a demonstration that showed just how dangerous the job can be, particularly from something called Backdraft. So, Ian, what is a backdraft?
A backdraft occurs when we've got a fire in a room that has used up all the available oxygen. The firefighter comes along, he opens the door. Lots of smoke rushing out, but lots of air rushing in. As they mix, they'll get to the point where they can ignite and can cause an explosion.
Wow, that's really scary, isn't it?
It can be very scary, but it's lethal as well. A number of firefighters die every year because this happens while they're inside the building.
The cutting extinguisher may be the answer. The Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service are the first fire service in the UK to be testing a revolutionary water jet that can cut through walls and allow firefighters to put out fires from the outside. This amazing extinguisher produces a jet of water that comes out at 200 metres a second. That's about 400 miles an hour. And it's combined with a little bit of this grit. It's iron oxide, very sharp-edged particles, a bit smaller than a millimetre across. And together they have the power, they claim, to go through 15 centimetres of concrete.
It will go through this concrete, it will go through a steel hull of a ship and any kind of material. We haven't come upon any type of material it can't go through.
We've set up a test to see whether the extinguisher will be able to cut through a solid block of concrete, and Ian's keen to see just how long it will take. Hey, they're through. That is fantastic. How long did it take?
Superb, 1.25 minutes at most.
What would it take you conventionally?
Traditionally 15 minutes, half an hour using some other form of tool. It's fine in a test situation, but I think we should try this on a real building and a real fire.
So we're introduced to the concept of backdraft, Russ. So before we get on to the equipment, this reminded me that when we were younger, when the film Backdraft came out, which, if you weren't aware, there was a film called Backdraft.
Yes.
It's one of those films that I think at the time, it felt like it left a huge, a large footprint in popular culture, but only for a very short time. It just felt like that. I don't know. In my mind, I just remember Backdraft being a big, huge thing, and then nothing for a really long time. And I think, I don't know. I've probably only seen it once, but yeah, it's just one of those films, like, I don't know, like Avatar, where it's like, it's this huge deal, and then it isn't, and no one remembers it anymore or talks about it.
The thing is that it seemed like I don't know whether it's the case that firemen didn't or scientists hadn't worked out the concept of backdraft, and then they did, and then they made a film that was somehow associated with it, or whether because the film was coming out, suddenly everybody just started talking about backdraft, because it wasn't just that the film was like people were talking about the film. The very concept of backdraft, I remember being discussed endlessly on TV programs, and like warning, like Lynn Foldswood or whoever, warning us, not to open our windows when there's a fire and things like that. It all seemed to coincide,
especially if you're wearing shell suits.
Exactly, eating Pop-Tarts. But it was like that was very much sort of it was the big danger of the day for a brief period, and it coincided with the film.
I don't feel like it's. Hey, look, I'm not saying this. I'll let other people say this, but it was almost like whichever production company made Backdraft also created the concept of backdraft to kill people. To as a really great bit of guerrilla marketing for their new film that was coming out. I also have to say, I do sometimes in my head Backdraft and Backbeat, the film about the forming of the Beatles, do sometimes get confused. But yeah, what's everywhere? I think it's me.
Like Kurt Russell is Paul McCartney.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing that one accent that all Americans do when they do an impression of the Beatles.
Very quickly, have you ever met
Russell? This whole bloody podcast is us taking walks down different paths. Go on.
This is something that's bugged me.
Have I ever met an Irish person who sounds like a New York cop?
No, have you ever met any Scousers who talk with the same accent as the Beatles? Because the Beatles all do have that sort of nasally
they do
voice that is very easy. It's very easy to do. Very easy to do an impression of.
Go on then.
But all the Scousers I've ever met all sound like they're from Brookside.
Yeah.
Like that much more sort
red.
of. Yeah. Which sounds nothing like the Beatles.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand where the Beatles accent came from.
I don't know how this came up in conversation, but sometime in the last couple of years this did come up in conversation. And I'm reliably informed that their accent is representative of a certain area. A bit like Lloyd Grossman. Like Lloyd Grossman's accent is a genuine accent from a specific area in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
You go there, they all sound like Lloyd Grossman.
Oh God, imagine that.
When we were growing up, I'm not surprised he left. No, I can't.
I remember Clive James once describing him as having irritable bowel syndrome, which I thought was good.
Oh, much missed. That is very good. But that's what I was told, that theirs was a specific accent from a specific area. But no, I've never met anyone who sounds like. Well, actually, sounds like the impression of the Beatles. No, not at all. No, it's a good one. Equally, I've never met anyone who sounds like that Irish accent Americans do when they're doing impressions of Irish people that sound sort of like the police cop from the original Batman series.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
Chief O'Reilly.
That's the one. Yeah. Where's he from? No, so yeah, I just think I'm not wrong though. I'm not wrong in remembering that like Backdraft was just a big thing. But you're right. Actually, it wasn't even just the film. It was the concept.
Yeah.
The actual problem of backdrafting or backing draft. I don't know. So that's interesting. So it's just, I remember when I first watched it thinking like, there's no way Adam-Hart Davis doesn't know what the backdraft is. Not because he's not an intelligent person and he would know what the backdraft is, but because like everyone knows what backdraft is because that effing film came out.
Yeah, well, the film came out in 91, so I mean they've had a good 12 years to, you know.
Oh, I'm sure all their VHS tapes are worn thin from rewatching. Yeah, I mean this is a really interesting invention that actually seems like it's bringing something new to an area of technology that actually could save lives.
Yeah,
I have issues with the way they showed off or the way that they've produced this segment, which I'm very happy to discuss with you, Russ. But the actual piece of equipment itself, this kind of, what does it do? It kind of fires high pressure water with little pellets of metal.
Yes,
allowing it to burst through a wall.
It's lumps of iron oxide, basically rust. Yeah, but it's so powerful it can cut through walls. And then once
spraying water and just put fires out from just by putting it up against this hole in the wall.
Yeah, and I think
absolutely brilliant.
The astonishing statistic from this, I think, is that it only took 10 litres of water to put out that versus massive blaze.
Hundreds, yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. And you know, not just cutting, and they do show like when they're outside, they do show this hose, I'll call it a hose, kind of going up against a kind of cinder block wall, and you know it cuts through swiftly, and not, you know, obviously it's edited, but like you get the real sense that it genuinely works, and they're about to show it off in one of these houses that the fire brigade have built. My issue with the presentation is it does annoy me every now and then when we see this, is that they clearly only have one camera, but because they're a kind of classic, you know,
reverse. What's it? Something reverse.
Shot reverse shot,
isn't it?
Yeah, shot reverse shot. Yeah, which means that they clearly would have filmed this over and over and over again. And there's moments where and also there's a moment later on where so they set this room on fire, and I'm sure we've all seen that clip before, where like you have kind of a 1970s couch and a plastic TV, and sure enough the couch goes up really quickly and the TV melts. And
noticeably they start the fire with a game of Jenga. I don't really notice that.
Oh yeah, they never mention it, do they? There's just a Jenga tower, and then they just set a light. I don't know what they're doing. I think that, you know, that must just be a gag they all did to see if they could get it past the BBC. But then with production standards this low, yeah, of course he did. Yeah. Great achievement. But there's a moment where you see the water coming in through the wall from inside that room, and it is clearly fake because the camera shakes a bit. Because the cameraman is shocked that the water comes through at the probably as close as it is to him. So that room isn't on fire. They have clearly a yellow gel, and stuff like that didn't annoy me first time I watched this, Russ.
No.
But it did the second, third, and now the fourth, because again, it just bloody hell. It just smacks of the laziness. Ironically, they did a lot of work to convince us that they weren't doing any work at all, which I think is just anyway. It's a really good. Overall, it's a good demonstration. And Ian Johnston, who we will talk about shortly, who is the fire chief, is a really good foil, I think.
Yes, yeah.
I liked his line delivery.
Yeah.
Didn't come naturally to him, but he did a really solid job.
He's if he was in Game of Thrones, he'd be very much a member of the Night's Watch, wouldn't he? He's got a he's a tough, no nonsense northerner.
Absolutely, he's got a job to do, and he's damn well going to do it. Yeah,
and he loves this. He loves this piece of equipment, doesn't he? He's well proud. He's well pleased with it.
Yeah, and I think rightly so.
But the thing I wonder about this what I would have liked to have seen is a demonstration, because if this thing can cut through concrete walls in like seconds, it must be like quite dangerous. Like, obviously, with hose pipes, are normally sort of sprayed about the place. I mean, what would happen? Yeah. Is there something in this that means that as long as it's not get directly against the wall, is it okay? Does it just, or can you just like cut people into ribbons from a distance with it? You know what I mean?
Well, No, I do. But I suppose it's probably a bit like I wondered if it's a bit like a kind of a sawn-off shotgun or something like that. It was like, from 10 feet away, you're going to make everyone lame or whatever, because the spread is really wide.
Yeah.
But it's but close up, it'll like slice you in half. I kind of get that impression.
Yeah.
Is that like if you took it away from the wall, it would just spread out and broaden, and you just be pockmarking the wall.
Yeah.
No, I think this is a really close up thing. It's a surgeon's knife.
Would have been nice. I would have liked to just see Adam-Hart Davis sort of, fire it at a watermelon or something like that, just so we got an idea of how dangerous it was.
How it would slice through a man's head.
My concern was that, because they're putting it against a wall blind and then firing it through this wall. Well, if there's a family standing on the other side of the wall, does that matter? Will it
That's, which is not unreasonable, by the way. Like, somebody could be slumped against the wall. I don't know. That's a really good question. I think maybe there's a specific height of wall, up the wall that they have to do, where like only an 18-foot man could be prone against the wall, so his head was 7 foot up against it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them around. No, it's a really good question, because it could be dangerous. Hey, it shocked that cameraman who was pretending he was in the fire.
Exactly. Yeah. I just mentioned him, Adam-Hart Davis, the presenter. I do like him as a presenter. He's got a slight air of children's presenter about him, isn't he? And he
does. Yeah.
And he's got something about the way he stands and his delivery, which I don't know. It's quite unusual in places. I think almost like a kid giving a presentation or something like that.
Yeah, he's very awkward looking.
Yeah. I'll give you some Adam-Hart Davis facts. Hopefully you won't remember all of them from last time.
I'm sure I won't.
So he was born on the 4th of July, 1943. That's Independence Day in America, Mark, and you didn't know that or not. So, and he's from Henley-on-Thames. He's extremely posh. He is by far the poshest presenter we have had on this programme. He's the son of a publisher called Sir Rupert Hart Davis, and then his mum's name was Catherine Comfort Borden Turner. Comfort? Have you ever heard of anybody called Comfort before?
I think I have, actually. I think somebody who used to work in the same organisation I do was called Comfort.
Really? Was she posh?
Correct. Yeah. No, she was not. No.
But
perfectly normal.
Queen Mother would be quite interested to know that he's the great grandson of King William IV. I know. I don't want to incur the wrath of Queen Mother's ghost again, but my eyes do tend to glaze over when it comes to royals. They're not,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm not rabidly anti-royal, but I don't understand why people are that interested in them. It's just.
No, it's good pub knowledge fodder, but
always fascinated by the one argument that I always think is funny is that they go, oh, we need the royal family because they bring in there's so many billions of pounds over the tourist industry. The response to that is, oh yeah, of course, because nobody ever visits Paris or New York, do they?
Yeah, I was going to mention France. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Adam-Hart Davis, we digressed there a bit, didn't we? So he went to Eton, predictably, and then went to Oxford.
Of course he did.
But he did. But to his credit, he's got his bona fides. He's got a PhD in organometallic chemistry. Yeah, but then he didn't put that to any work because he joined Yorkshire TV in 1977. But always worked on science programs. So he worked with Magnus Pike, David Bellamy, Miriam Stoppard, and Arthur C. Clarke on his Mysterious World program. But then in the 80s, he moved on to children's TV, unsurprisingly. Produced a couple of children's TV programs, Me and My Micro, and then there was a program with Johnny Ball called Fun and Games he did. But then he came up with the idea for the program Local Heroes, which I remember quite fondly, actually. I always found that quite entertaining, where he'd cycle around a location in brightly coloured pink and yellow, I believe, cycleware, and tell us about all of the local inventors and scientists and things like that. I actually watched an episode of it on just quite a few of them on YouTube to see whether it still stands up, and it did. It was good, entertaining half hour. It was, yeah. So I recommend that if you run out of other things to watch on YouTube. And of course, famously, he was in the HM Revenue and Customs adverts with the tax.
Yes.
Tax doesn't have to be taxing. Yes.
Yeah.
But he got sacked from that after he criticised HMRC for being too complicated.
Do you know, I remember that. The weird thing is, in my mind, I had to look that up because in my mind, I thought he'd been sacked for fiddling his taxes. So I was kind of relieved.
That would have been better, wouldn't it? Yeah.
It would have been, yeah. And then to me, it also explained why I'd barely seen him on TV since that.
Well, I genuinely thought he died, but then maybe I was just getting confused with Harold Ramis because he does, of course, bear an uncanny resemblance.
Ross, you could have dropped. You did not need to bring this up. This could have stayed in the lost episode. This is nonsense.
He has an uncanny resemblance to Egon Spengler from Ghostbusters.
An entirely canny. No, it's not. It's absolute nonsense. Nothing like. You're going to tell us how you think the character of Egon Spengler might be based on him?
No.
Because that's what you said. That's what he said last time, listeners.
No. What I said last time was that it's quite well known that the Duke, David Dickinson, presenter of Bargain Hunt, a man who, of course, I once met. The only reason he got his job on TV was that somebody saw him and thought his haircut reminded them of Lovejoy. So they employed him as an antiques presenter, right? So it's perfectly possible that somebody could have looked at Adam-Hart Davis and gone, well, this bloke looks a bit like Egon from Ghostbusters. Let's put him on camera. That's just my theory, Mark. I think it stands up.
Yeah, okay. So how about you tell us whether this... I have to say, there's an elephant in the room. So we'll come to the elephant in the room in a minute. And I really want to move away from this Egon Spengler theory that you're really trying to thrash like the dead horse we're going to see any minute now. Because here's the thing. One thing I said in my notes is that... oh, by the way, the Swedish guy who did this, Lars Larsson, that's a great name.
Love the Scandinavian double name, like Magnus Magnusson. Yeah. Love it. Always good. Always good fun.
It's fabulous, isn't it? Yeah. This seems like a good bit of equipment, and I thought they did a really good job displaying it, as I said. So I wrote my notes. Therefore, I'm curious to why I feel like I've never seen it anywhere. And then you were kind enough to update me, because genuinely, I don't feel like I've ever seen or heard of firefighters kind of, ostensibly drilling a hole in the wall when there's, a raging fire in a living room.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, how many actual fires have you ever seen put out?
That's a fair point. Not many.
I guess the use of it is they can only use it in a situation when there's a danger of there being a backdraft, I guess. So maybe those sort of, maybe the film lied to us and those sort of situations actually are fairly rare. I don't know.
It's common.
Not sure. But yes, no, the invention actually been very successful for what it is. Old Lars Larsson, he's still going strong, still selling these. He's decided to dub this hose the Cold Cut Cobra.
That's right, the Cold Cut
which
Cobra,
makes it sound very exciting, doesn't it? But yeah, he's not personally a fireman himself. He worked in offshore industry, which seems to be something of a recurring theme in tomorrow's world, isn't it? Some things involving the oil industry. But he was trying to develop a way of cutting metal in environments where explosions might happen. So, if you've got an oil pipeline or oil rig or something like that, you don't want to be using your traditional oxyacetylene torches or anything like that because it causes a massive explosion. So he developed this water-based one. But then the Swedish fire service wanted to have a go on it, see whether they could use it to make ventilation holes in houses. Actually, the absolute reverse of what they should be doing, because that probably causes a backdraft, wouldn't it? But anyway, that was their idea. But then they once they started firing it into these burning houses, they realised that actually, wow, this is really good at putting out the fires. So it's a kind of like accidental discovery. Yeah, it's going well. They reckon, according to the website, they reckon that there's about 1,300 of these systems around the world in 45 different countries. It's used, it's working, it's doing good work. Yeah, I don't know whether the Lancashire Fire Service has one. I couldn't find that out, I'm afraid. But yeah, all good.
Which is great news. Mm-hmm. Saving lives, no doubt. What else did you learn from your research, Russ?
Well,
because you surprised me last time with something you weren't expecting to discover, and
when I do this research, I literally just watch the episode, and whenever anything pops up, give it a quick Google. And I was ready to move on to the next segment, and then I thought, hang on a minute, I wonder what Ian Johnston is up to. Whether he's like, he might be like chief of the fire service these days, or something like that. It turns out that Ian Johnston was involved in a horrific murder plot. Now, I want to stress that he himself was not responsible for it. So I'll just read. This is a BBC article of the case. So Sadie Hartley was Ian Johnston's wife or girlfriend, maybe.
That was wife, wasn't it? Oh no, yeah.
Well, she's not called Sadie Johnston, is she? So maybe not. But
no, that's true.
So yeah, this is. It says after the case, it said on the BBC, it says an obsessive she-devil who murdered a love rival in a brutal attack. She plotted with a friend.
Sorry, was this the BBC article you read?
Yeah.
And they use she-devil?
Yeah, she-devils in inverted commas. So it must have been said in court, I guess. Right. Who murdered a love rival in a brutal attack she plotted with a friend, has been jailed for a minimum of 30 years. Sarah Williams, 35, stunned Sadie Hartley with a cattle prod and then stabbed her to death 41 times in an orgy of violence. She attacked Miss Hartley, 60, at her home in a bid to win back ex-lover Ian Johnston. And it very much is definitely the same Ian Johnston, because there's photos of him looking quite upset, understandably. But but Ian, he's not entirely blameless. He was cheating on the murdered lady and sending sex texts to the murderer until like a few days before the murder happened. But poor Ian did not come out of this very well, because he wasn't in the murdered lady's will and he was living in her house. So their family, obviously, fairly understandably, just booted him out, and he was left kind of destitute, really, by the whole thing. So poor Ian. He did this lifetime of service, saving lives and things like that, and he's had a rum old deal of it. But maybe it's the curse of the Queen Mother, Mark.
God, you're right, Russ. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's like Carter opening the tomb, isn't it? Yeah, a very sad story. Genuinely a very sad story. But to be fair, I don't know. I think it's really important to discuss this, because of the kind of commitment we have here at Tomorrow's World all the time, to make sure that we are able to really truly go underneath a story and around a story to get the full details. It's awful, though. I mean, genuinely awful.
Yeah. If only Eddie the bouncer had been posted on Sadie Hartley's front door, she would have found those knives and that cattle prods before anything bad would happen.
Yeah, should definitely keep that in the episode with us.
I'm the editor, Mark. I can keep what I like in it.
Now, take a look at this. This material can absorb up to 30 times its own weight in liquid. It may look like the latest in kitchen roll design, but it is in fact a new high-tech dressing, and its makers claim it heals wounds in super quick time. Now, there are two main reasons for dressing a wound. Firstly, to keep germs out, and secondly, to absorb the fluid which oozes from the wound. Most dressings just absorb this fluid. What's special about this one is its unique 3-layered structure, which actively pulls the fluid out of the wound. And just imagine the hairs in this paintbrush are the fibres in the first layer of the dressing. The fibres all sit vertically to each other, so that when they're put on top of the wound, this red paint, there we go, the fluid moves up quickly and into the second layer. Now, this mechanism's called capillary action, and it not only cleans the wound, but it also draws in new blood and infection-fighting cells behind it, both of which should promote healing. The second layer here is made of a different material, an absorbent polyester cotton. This locks the fluid inside it, keeping the wetness well away from the wound face. Now, this means the wound is kept moist under here, but the surrounding skin doesn't get wet, which makes ideal healing conditions. Now, that's a theory, but does it really work? Well, the Royal London Hospital is just starting trials of this dressing, and last week we met one of their first patients, Khalil Ahmed. Now, just to warn you, if you're a little bit squeamish, there will be close-up images of his wound.
1 week ago in this Indian restaurant in London, Khalil, the chef and owner, had a horrible accident which left him severely burnt.
Last week when I was working in the kitchen, I wanted to move hot gravy pan one place to other place, and my leg was slipped and the gravy fell over my body. I was screaming that time. It was pain really burning pain.
I would say that Mark, I'm just looking here. We're almost exactly halfway through the episode, aren't we? And this is where it really starts to come apart, in my opinion. I mean, this is a.
We turn the bend. We're entering the back nine, and this is where it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Let's start with the positives. I was going to say, let's start with the positives. Right. This is a medical piece, which are normally boring, and I think we're both agreed are our least favourite things that Tomorrow's World does. This is perfectly fine as a medical piece.
It's a good point, actually.
Borderline entertaining, And I'd also say, I think Roger Black does a really good job when he's doing the visual demonstration of the technology that makes up this new dressing. Having said that, I know you are a fan of the bizarre collection of crockery he's been given to do this
So they seem to have purchased his lab equipment from a antique shop. It's like I'm sure there's a proper name for them, but it's like one of those big dishes that you would serve up a joint of roast beef in sort of Georgian times. It's white porcelain, and it even has like some sort of design on it.
It's embossed or something, like there's kind of ridges where there's clearly a pattern.
Yeah.
Kind of a William Morris kind of pattern to it.
It's such an odd thing to use to demonstrate, a scientific thing. And then obviously later on, we...
Oh, well, let's get to that. No. No.
Right.
Let's not spoil that.
Keep our powder
But I was
dry.
going to say, because actually the other thing I was going to say, yes, there is this kind of weird, huge this embossed serving tray, this kind of, which is given to kind of mop up this tiny bit of blood. And then next to him is a giant claret jug full of claret. I mean, it's just, it feels like a hospital. It feels like he's being tricked. He's being bullied on air by the props department. You are right. Oh, do you know what? Sod it. Let's not keep our powder dry. Because I think the video is important to talk about. The reconstruction is important to talk about. We can talk about that separately. We come back to the studio after that. Khalil is back in the studio. Now, I want to point out my particular annoyance with this segment is that twice the accident is referred to as being last week, but we were told at a different point that it was 15 days ago. Now, one of those times is live in the studio, he's told us a week ago, and then he does it in the voiceover at the reconstruction, which we'll talk about in a second. One of them is wrong, but at no point did quality control pick up the error and change it.
No.
So it's not that I'm accusing the BBC of lying, like I have before. It is again just symptomatic of just a kind of a laziness or an amateurishness.
Yeah.
Anyway, we come back to the office. Come back into the studio. Oh, actually, here's where the BBC lied. And Khalil. Now, here's the thing, Russ. So Khalil is a patient. You want him to be comfortable. It's very important that he's comfortable. He's had a very serious burn, and by all accounts, you see his burn properly. It's very serious. Though, the doctor does rather patronisingly refer to it as superficial. Khalil walking off. I mean, fair enough. I get that it's probably a proper measurement of the danger that Khalil suffered, but nonetheless, it's merely superficial. But it is quite large, and I'm sure it probably was very, very painful.
Oh yeah, burns really do hurt.
But they want to make Khalil comfortable. Of course they do. Tiny ones hurt. So they want to make Khalil comfortable. And again, this is where the props department is bullying Roger Black because, and I'm going to use a joke I used last time, because the only way I can describe where they have Khalil sat down is they have stolen Supergrand's Lazy Boy. It is this, he is sat down on a monstrously horrible tartan Lazy Boy in the middle of this Maplin studio, and it is so incongruous. And Roger Black doesn't mention this serving dish. He doesn't mention the fact that he has to use a jug of claret. And he certainly doesn't mention the fact that they've looked around the BBC television centre, which must be packed full of Eames lounges up in the executive suites. Of course. And this is what they give Khalil to sit on?
Yeah.
It's horrible. I mean, A, it's just visually horrible. Like, no one should ever have bought that. But B, it's just really patronising to poor Khalil. And then the doctor, they say, oh, let's see how it's done. And then they pretend like they're undressing the wound, which they have already clearly done. The doctor leans in.
That dressing, right? If that dressing was applied like that, I just don't think it would have stayed on his leg, Mark.
Oh, no. Unbelievable.
The fact that they could just lift it up like a flap, and there's no, there's no blood or pus or anything on it. I guess that's why they've used the fresh one.
No.
But I don't know why they're saying that they're removing his dressing.
Because
there's
the doctor leans in. Yeah, and then kind of does a little line about, hey, I'm just look. Are you sure you're happy to do this? I'm concerned about your health or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's that's what's being implied. And they did it ages ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, it wafts over in the breeze of the studio.
Yeah, it's actually a bit like a comb over, isn't it? Like when a comb over gets hit by the wind.
Yes, it is. Yeah, like the one Gregor Fisher had in the Hamlet ads.
Yeah. It's so bizarre because we're watching it. We can see. We can see that dress. That isn't a dressing. We can see that's just a pad resting on his leg.
Correct.
So why even introduce the idea that?
Why pretend? Yeah.
It's bizarre. It's a bizarre.
I mean, all that is like, obviously, the doctor undid this earlier, so let's have a look and see what's happened in the 15/7 days since the accident 2 weeks ago or a week ago. Again, it's just really annoying because, as you're rightly saying, it's like we know it's not undressed there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear and obvious.
Yeah. Well,
now, not to take away from the quality of the improvement in his wound, but still, don't lie.
No, the recreation of what's his name? I've got his name already. The Khalil's accident. This seems to this is the most 90s segment. I think it's reproducing some of the complaints that we had about the 96 episode, where there's Dutch Angle has reappeared at one point, and the kitchen, which are notoriously bright environments, much like laboratories.
Very bright.
Apparently, Khalil's kitchen is in near darkness, which, I mean, perhaps explains why he's had the accident. He couldn't see where he was going.
Makes sense to us.
But and then it's sort of lit with those sort of weird lights.
Red and blue gels,
yeah.
It just washed up the back, but you're right.
It's not a good look.
No, and it's just, again, it's like, I don't even know if you don't need a reconstruction. You actually, like a previous generation of Tomorrow's World wouldn't have, I don't think they would have had a reconstruction. They would have just spoken to him and shown you his injury. The lack of faith this program has in its audience.
Yeah.
Is really one of the worst things about it, actually.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, if I'm being generous, maybe they did a reconstruction because they wanted to enjoy a day down in... Now, I think if memory serves me correctly, you were saying that previously that this restaurant used to be in Bethnal Green.
Spice of India, yes. It was number 267 Bethnal Green Road, I discovered. It's no longer there. Hopefully, Khalil retired to riches or something like that. But
well, I was going to say, I hope he's riding the gravy train, not spilling it.
Exactly, yeah. It's now a Turkish restaurant called Azka, which is very highly well reviewed. Yeah, get yourself down there, Mark. It's only down the road from you, isn't it?
I do like Turkish, and I do like Bethnal Green, so yeah, maybe I will check it out. Then again, living in Hackney, we are spoiled for quality Turkish restaurants.
Although, I mean, funny enough, Khalil's singed calf that did remind me slightly of a stick of doner.
Well, you and I go to different Turkish restaurants, Russ, but yes. It did rather the classic elephant's leg there being sliced apart. The reconstruction, it's just it's painful to watch, and it adds nothing. And again, it's like it belittles the audience, and actually it belittles Khalil. I don't know how they picked Khalil. I assume they knew they wanted to run this piece, and they were just waiting for the right injury to come along and also the right kind of person to say, yeah, I'm happy to be involved in this.
Yeah.
And like Khalil seems like a really sweet, nice guy, and like they just, in my mind, they just kind of abuse him with this comedy reconstruction, and fucking lazy boy they make him sit on.
I mean, consider. I thought the white furniture from the last episode was bad furniture, but this is next level. This is
it's unreal.
We might have to add to our audit worst piece of furniture.
Let me just write this down in my notebook. Hang on one second.
It starts becoming a regular thing that we notice.
I'm going to draw an arrow coming down from Super Grand's lazy boy that I've written here, and now I'm writing worst furniture ? Question mark. There we go.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what more there is to say about this, but it's interesting now watching this in the context of the program, knowing that actually this is the point where it begins to get so far like it's a perfectly decent program. I mean, I know we joked about Eddie and Rob and the metal detector, but the firefighting stuff was good.
Yeah.
On paper, this should be perfectly boring, but we're now at the point where the execution is the real serious issue with this.
Totally, yeah. It's very difficult to look up this dressing, because as we've Tomorrow's World tradition is, they don't actually really tell you, what it's called, what the product. So I mean, it seems to me that there's countless different types of wound dressings out there, and it seems to be quite a fast-moving industry with new things coming along quite regularly. So I assume that this is in use, or if not, then there's probably an even better version in use now. But not much I could tell you about it. Yeah, other than that, really.
But it works. It works clearly on superficial wounds. So fair play. And again, I think Roger does a good job of explaining what it does.
And I just realised that they followed the firefighting segment with a burns segment.
Oh yeah, do you think that was deliberate?
I don't,
because there's nothing else deliberate.
I just haven't anything deliberate on this programme. This absolute shambles. Right, should we move on to
right? Speaking of which, segment 4.
Strap yourselves in, everyone. Oh, Christ!
Just put it on fast forward, will you, Russ?
Now, throughout this series of Tomorrow's World, we'll be going behind the scenes with scientists to find out what makes them passionate about their way of life. This week, we join astronomer Francisco Diego as he sets out to catch a glimpse of Ikea Zhang, a comet that was last seen over 340 years ago. Francisco's been studying the night sky for over 30 years. By day, he designs instruments that shed light on the mysteries of the universe, but he's never happier than when he's actually looking through a telescope.
My interest in astronomy started when I was a young kid back in Mexico, where we have beautiful sky. And I used to look at the stars all the time.
Today is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see close-up the comet Ikea Zhang.
The main part of the comet is the nucleus, which is the solid part. The idea is that they are made out of ice, like a snowball. And this snowball is several kilometers in size. And it is also mixed with dust, like soot and sand. When you see a bright comet in the sky from a clear location, it's quite a spectacle.
To see the comet in detail, Francisco uses one of the largest refracting telescopes in the world, the Radcliff Telescope, helped by Chief Technician Chris Clark.
Hi Chris.
Hi Francisco.
How are you doing? The sky is very, very clear.
It's looking good, yeah. Clear. Should be able to get the comet tonight.
Okay, look, I got the coordinates here.
29 degrees. We're going to have to reverse the telescope for that.
That's right, yes, it's on the west. Yeah.
All right, let's go through it.
Now, it was at this point, Mark, that I felt genuine jealousy that I wasn't the Queen Mother, because she died and didn't have to witness that segment. That is, I think, probably the worst segment of Tomorrow's World we will ever see.
Oh, I as I was rewatching it again, and you, here's a bit of backstage business here. Russell abandoned me to use the facilities in his flat, so I had to watch it all again by myself. And I was thinking to myself, like, this genuinely, to the best of my knowledge so far, might be the worst thing ever broadcast on BBC.
It is
because
awful.
It is very difficult. I mean, if you're at home and you think this is hyperbole, no doubt you've heard it, and it sounds like something. It is genuinely difficult to explain how bad that segment actually is. It is so amateurish. It is borderline unwatchable. And it should never be broadcast. And certainly the one thing it does not do is give you any insight whatsoever into the day in a life of an astronomer.
It doesn't give me any insight into anything.
It's shameful. No, it doesn't.
Nothing.
It's absolutely shameful.
I mean, the nation's flagship broadcaster, Mark. And I mean, back in 2002, that still meant something.
Yeah.
And they're putting on something this bad. You know, the level of sort of camera work in this is... I mean, just point the camera correctly. Just hold it further away from their faces. Hold it upright. Oh, and the segments in the car where they weirdly speed it up for no reason. And it's
the annoying thing is at some point we will have to unfortunately drag ourselves back to this era of Tomorrow's World, and we may even see another segment that is a day in the life of a scientist. And I have no doubt that there are entries in this strand that you may well, in fact, actually learn something. But because the thing that really annoyed me is, here's the thing. I find it so frustrating and annoying. It actually makes me angry. And my brain is jumping between all the things I hated. And my fear is that if I jump to one and start talking about it, that somehow we will not talk about something else.
I know exactly what you mean.
All of this needs to be dragged. Every single goddamn element of this needs to be dragged out in public and whipped and shamed. And so I'm not even going to land where I was going to land there. It is shockingly filmed. And you're right. I understand that, fair enough. This is the whole point is that it's part of that kind of around this time we discussed this.
Yeah, it's like video diaries was I think probably
absolutely,
the prime example of that.
Which is a really good BBC Two strand of programs where real people would film themselves, but they would sit down opposite like a camcorder on a tripod, so that even if the visual quality wasn't good, it could still be broadcast because it was locked off, it was zoomed in on them, and they would talk about their lives.
And it was insightful. That's the key.
It was genuinely insightful, yeah, and because it would be people sharing their lives. So here's my thing. I appreciate that Francisco and his friend are not camera people, but they've watched television.
Yeah.
And they know that you don't, the camera does not go up someone's nose. And they know that you hold it straight. Now, fair enough, they may have watched Tomorrow's World and decided that Dutch angles are the best.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if you're listening at home, and of course you are, Russell will have spliced in the audio of this, and Adam-Hart Davis's voiceover is professional. As professional quality. But if you listen hard, you will hear how the microphones attached to the people, they're all this constant rustling sounds. It's like they haven't attached to their clothes so much as they've kind of lubed up their clothes and they're rubbing the microphone over it to get as much goddamn noise. Or maybe they're hoping that if their clothes are rigid enough, maybe they can play a tune and we'll all be able to hear it at home. So I appreciate, when I have to describe how bad it looks, but that car thing, Russ, you're doing them a favor, because that whole thing where he's driving around, which is entirely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because there's no need to show he's going from somewhere to somewhere else. It is painful. It hurts your eyes.
They must have filmed. Say they filmed a couple of hours worth of footage.
Yeah.
And this is the best stuff they could cut out of it.
Yeah, these guys did not edit this. Someone edited it for them, and you're right. You're absolutely right. How much worse was this?
There's one bit where the camera just suddenly randomly zooms in on his legs, and you just see an out of focus shot of his knees.
Absolutely correct.
Why is that there? What?
And it's not even that. It's fair enough. They may feel like they managed to salvage this. But the second they sat down and watched it, there's an editor for this program, for God's sakes, and a director. And they sat down and they watched this and said, well, that'll do. Let's press play.
It screams cheapness, just lack of care.
And to get to where I was going before, at the heart of it, we have a astronomer who wants to see this comet. And it's like Halley's Comet. I can't remember what it's called. I'm really not going to watch it.
Hang on a minute. I've got it
here.
Ikeya Zhang.
Brilliant. So it only turns up every now and then, and I'm sure he'll never get another chance to see it.
Well, if he lives to the year 2362, he will. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hashtag life goal.
Hopefully he'll have a decent camera by then.
Yeah. But there is zero science gained from this.
No.
And in fact, it disrupts the operation of the entire Radcliff Observatory, because they have to point it in the wrong direction, which they haven't done for years because there's not set up for that. It's, they never check. Most of the segment is literally them struggling with turning the observatory to point into the direction of a comet that is just, by all accounts, it's just a comet. There is nothing more about it that needs to be. He just fancies seeing it.
Well, yeah.
Only to be told. Go on.
Well, like I say, we don't know. There could be loads of things, but we're not told anything.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not told
We're
anything
not told.
about
Yeah, he just wants to see it.
We're
That's
not told
all
about
I know
the
from
comet,
this.
and we're not told about, and we're not given any information apart from the fact that he wants to swing this telescope round and look at this comet. But none of the, background information or or anything like that is given to us at all. So all we're really seeing is a couple of blokes moving a piece of machinery.
Yep. And then we are told right at the end that you don't even need it. All you need to do is look in the west after 9 when it's dark.
Yeah.
And so, not just amateurish, not just unbroadcastable, not just shameful, but entirely pointless.
Garbage. Absolute garbage.
Absolute garbage. And that's why I was thinking as I was watching it for the fourth time, resenting you disappearing off, thinking like, how dare you leave me to watch this on my own? It's like, this has got to be the worst thing ever on BBC One.
I'd been sitting here with
and BBC One showed us Jim will fix it.
My bladder was absolutely screaming, Mark, when I was holding on, knowing that I could miss a few minutes of that sodding VT by escaping to the toilet. Yeah, so I mean, as I said, the Cumberland's going to come back in 2362. Dr. Francisco Diego, who vaguely reminded me of Javier Bardem, but that might just be me being racist.
No. He looks. No, he does have a bit of Bardem.
Yeah, well, he's a lecturer at UCL. He didn't put off the TV people because he's been on quite a few TV programs since. So presumably they didn't see this because if I'd made TV.
You're saying this may not be in his show.
I would have blackballed him instantly after seeing this monstrosity. Yeah, anything else to say about it?
Oh, I mean, like, I would very happily repeat every complaint I just have just to feel the joy of the anger boil up inside me so I feel alive for a few minutes, Russ, but no, other than that, I don't.
Thanks, Adam. Now, this Saturday, there's one of the biggest events in the horse racing calendar when 40 jockeys will compete in the Grand National. A sport with such illustrious traditions is not without controversy, and the use of the whip is a highly debated issue. This device, the Intelligent Whip, is designed to make races fairer for the jockeys and safer for the horses, because unlike an ordinary whip, there are sensors inside here that pick up how often and how hard it's used. Now, we've got Grand National jockey Mick Fitzgerald in the studio with us to test this new design. Hi, Mick, how are you doing?
Hi, Kate, good.
Now, some people would argue or question why you use whips at all in racing.
Well, mostly they're used as a corrective measure. If you've got a horse that looks like it's taking a wrong turn on a race course, if you're going left-handed and it's heading off to the right, you just give it a little tap to keep it straight. Otherwise, you run the risk of running everybody over.
But it's not always just a little tap, is it? And that's the problem.
Yeah, well, we're trying to get the best out of the horse without abusing them, and I think this might just help us.
But so you think this might stop people overusing whips?
Well, it'll just show how hard the horses are being hit and maybe show that they don't need to be hit as hard.
OK, well, let's see how it works. If you wouldn't mind getting on Albert, or possibly Alfred, over there, I'm going to introduce you to David Muir. Hi, David.
Good evening.
Now, you're an equine consultant for the RSPCA. You attend a lot of races. What do you actually do?
My primary role is to maintain a dialogue with the racing industry and therefore progress welfare issues for the horse.
Right, so we've got Mick aboard. Are you all right there, Mick?
There you are.
Could you just demonstrate these sort of whipping techniques, if you like, and what's good and what's not so good?
Yes, I must remember what I'm doing as a demonstration.
Of course.
Mick, what I want you to do is use the whip in the encouragement mode, please.
So when you say encouragement mode...
This is gently applying the whip and asking the horse to move forward, to promote it forward without unacceptable levels of pain.
OK. Let's see another one then.
Yes.
So would this be something that maybe when you were coming into the final straight?
This is coming into the excessive force area now. We're looking at it. What I would like you to do now, Mick, is really above shoulder height and apply it.
And so if a jockey is hitting a horse like that, I think that'll do, actually, make it so it looks all very brutal.
It's an absolute shambles, isn't it, Mark? Shambolic and incompetent.
It's just woeful from beginning to end. There are many reasons why this isn't a train wreck. And, I kind of struggle, I really struggle with this one. And at the heart of it, I think, actually, in your notes, you lay out how you think this would have been done in a previous generation of tomorrow's world.
Yeah.
And I think you do a good job. Let's not do that now. Let's talk about what we have before we talk about what should have been. It's a poor reviewer who reviews something based on what it should be, not what it is.
Yeah.
But it's a great podcast. this whole thing just hurts my head because it's poorly conceived from the beginning.
Yes.
And I think you and I, at the end of our first recording, between us, I think we kind of hit upon the idea that they had rehearsed this, and it feels like it was a shambles.
Yeah.
And it feels like the relationships between the three people had soured, and that you couldn't recover from there. And by that, what we mean is that you have Mick, who is a champion jockey, very happy to whip horses. You have, who's the guy for the RSPCA?
His name is David Muir.
David. You have David from the RSPCA, who, for a man who is all about animal welfare, looks like he is in the pocket of Big Horse.
I the amount of times he's probably knocked down a deer with his car and then had to like smash it over the head with a jack handle. He just needs that look about him.
Allegedly, but well, it's and then you have Kate Humble, who I think I've used this phrase already in this podcast. I think this is a hospital pass for Kate Humble. At this point now we know she does spring watch and autumn watch and summer watch and I'm assuming winter.
Well, she's a notorious badger botherer.
Badger botherer. She's a decent person.
Yes, yeah. She clearly loves nature. Clearly loves nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout Mick's whole demonstration of using the whip, she's clearly she goes from being uncomfortable through to I actually think being upset.
Yes.
And I think she does a really stand-up job of holding it together as well as she does. But clearly something has happened before we ever see any of them. Do you know what? It feels toxic when the whole thing starts. Like this starts and feels damaged. It doesn't spin off. It starts damaged and it gets worse.
It's like I feel like she should have maybe said, "I'm not comfortable presenting this. Get Roger to do it."
Correct. Yeah.
Or something like that. I mean, I don't think she's completely blameless in this.
No.
Because if she's that uncomfortable presenting this, then she should have said, "I don't want to present this." But she doesn't. She does present it, and then she kind of sabotages it as she's going along. I feel like it's clearly not going the way that the others involved in it thought it was going to go. Because there's a real sense that David, the RSPCA guy, that he's trying to steer it back on course.
Yeah, he knows what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And he's trying to play his part, but he's rubbing up against a lot of tension.
Exactly,
That's fair.
Yeah. And actually, I only realised, weirdly, I only noticed while watching it this 18th time, or however many times I've watched it now, that there's another bloke there as well, because there's a bloke at the laptop.
Oh, the computer guy. Yeah,
he doesn't need to be there, does he? I don't know why he's turned up.
No.
Yeah, but
Maybe he works in Maplins.
He's very sensibly staying well out of it. He's
well out of it. You then have Mick, who I get the impression, and again, reading way too much into this, I don't think we discussed Mick enough. And I think watching it this time, I think a lot of the edge, I feel like, comes from him. He's a jockey, and obviously he has no problem with whipping a horse.
No, none whatsoever.
No, of course not. I'm sure he has a problem with abusing animals. I'm not going to. I'm sure he does. Not least because why would you go on Tomorrow's World? I don't know if jockeys have agents, but you'd still go like, no, I'm okay, thanks. I don't need that. But I think a lot of the tension I feel like comes from him, where he really starts from a hugely defensive position.
Yeah, massively defensive.
And that's why I think we both kind of rested on the idea that perhaps the rehearsal had gone sour because he took offence to the idea that jockeys, ergo he, were abusing animals. And of course, the whole point about this, in theory, should be about, and you'll get to this, and I think you'll do a really good job of explaining how this should have been structured. But one of the issues you have is that you don't know what this is really about, and it's only when it finishes are you able to stop and think and reconstruct exactly what this was trying to do.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but at the heart of it, I think, is the fact that Mick is really, really defensive, and I think his defensiveness is what kind of maybe brings out some emotion in Kate Humble that means that the whole thing slightly rubs against each other. That, and of course the fact that it is fatally flawed from the construction of it in the first place.
Whenever I see anybody interviewing an Irish jockey, I immediately think of Alan Partridge interviewing the jockey in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
I can't shake that from my brain, but it's a very different encounter than Alan Partridge.
Very different. But he's much taller.
So this jockey chap, he uses very diplomatic kind of terms. So Kate Humble's essentially saying you're thrashing the living daylights out of those horses, and he replies with corrective measure.
Corrective, yeah.
Just a little tap, getting the best out of the horse. That sort of thing.
Didn't David at one point say try encourage mode or something like that?
yeah. Encouragement mode. Encouragement mode engaged. Yeah, and he seems to be pretty fairly au fait with the how to use an overhead thrashing technique. The bit where Kate Humble gets distressed, where she says, what did she say? Brutal. I think she calls it brutal. That's rather brutal.
It's enough of that. I think it's brutal enough.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah. And by the way, here's the thing: is like that should be the point of that section. But I think that's why we think something happened beforehand, because it should be very easy to be quite professional and go like, well, no, he is doing that thrashing. But I think part of the problem is that Mick doesn't look like he thinks he's doing that much wrong. But I mean, we're putting words, we're imagining conversations that may not have happened.
Yeah, but I come away from this section thinking, what is the invention and what is its application? So because there's the invention of a whip with a sensor in it.
Yes.
Which they then use to record how hard they're hitting the horse.
Yes.
But there's not really a suggestion that they're going to use that in races, as far as I could understand, because then David brings up the idea that they're going to use new shock-absorbing whips, which
Kate is holding at the beginning. But then never mentions again.
Which is why David brings it up, because he's trying to get it back on being
track.
perceptive and realising this whole thing's going wrong, and the shock-absorbing whips haven't even been mentioned. So he feels the need to suddenly just incongruously mention them, even though they've not been announced yet. So I come away from this going, well, so is the invention the whip with the sensor in it, or is the invention the shock-absorbing whip, or is it both, or what?
Correct. Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. Would the whips with the sensors in them be used during races, or are they only used experimentally? Who knows? Don't know. I'm not told any of these things.
They don't tell us,
No.
yeah. So do me a favour, tell us how it should have gone and how it would have gone in the past, because I think you're spot on.
So from watching this, I think what would have happened is that Judith Hann would come in, ideally dressed in her cowboy outfit again, and but the scene would open with Mick on the horse already.
Yeah.
And that guy with the laptop, maybe actually probably bin off the guy with the laptop. Don't need him. We'll just have David, the RSPCA fella, watching him on the horse. Judith comes over. She then has to talk over the sound of the horse because it's Tomorrow's World, and the horse is really loud. We can barely hear what she's saying.
I've got brilliant, perfect.
Yeah, and she introduces the problem, and the problem is very clear that some jockeys whip horses too hard. She doesn't need to talk to Mick about that. That's just a fact. She then shows us the new whip with the detector in it, explains how it works. He probably points out the sensors or whatever, and then she can walk over to the computer screen and show us the computer screen and the readouts. And then obviously Judith isn't the expert in this. David is. David, the RSPCA man, is. So get David to explain the readout and what is, what's acceptable, what isn't in the world of horse racing. And then Judith can ask David and go, what can we do about this problem? And then David can bring out the new shock-absorbing whip and go, well, we've got these new shock-absorbing whips which reduce the damage to the horses, and that's how the problem is solved. Then Judith can wish Mick good luck at Grand National on Saturday, and segment's over. And we've all learned something. We understand the problem from start to finish. Done.
Yep.
That is how that segment should have gone.
Absolutely. And we've advertised the fact that the Grand Nationals on BBC One. And
exactly. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
no,
totally.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. That's exactly how it would have gone.
So how it went so utterly haywire, I have no idea. Just no one in control who knows what they're doing.
That's the thing. It's completely inexplicable how the fact that something might have happened to sour relations and kind of kibosh somebody off is one thing, but the fact that it was structurally problematic from the beginning, I think, is just a whole different level of problem. You have, I think, described really well exactly how it would have gone. So it's just, I just don't understand. Yeah, it's just so weird. And this coming on the back of a day in the life of an astronomer.
Yeah, it's back to back cack.
You're very proud of yourself.
There we go. It's nice to come up with some fresh jokes, isn't it, Mark?
Yes, it is, Russ. It is definitely. We have now, let me have a look. We have now talked about this episode for close to or over 6 hours.
Crikey.
And I am feeling slightly delirious.
I could talk for another hour, which I think we probably inevitably
Do you see me
will.
leaving? well, we have to because we have 2 segments and we actually have to audit the episode.
So Mick Fitzgerald, I did not warm to Mick Fitzgerald. I think maybe possibly, because I quite like Kate Humble, and I could tell that they weren't getting on, so I didn't. I was sort of turned against him slightly. So
it's unenjoyable to watch.
I was delighted to discover that at the Grand National that weekend he fell at the first fence. So
very good.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of maybe the curse of the Queen Mother got him as well. But David Muir, the RSPCA man, he only retired very recently. Actually, I was surprised by that because he looks fairly old in this. But he only retired about 2 years ago. To be fair, he was trying to press home that sort of chips in whips. He's been trying to get that done since this episode, and still being ignored by the British horse racing authorities.
Which, to be fair, does not speak highly about their willingness to really engage with an issue that upsets quite a lot of people.
Exactly. Yeah. Indeed.
You don't need, because I mean, back then, if you're going to have chips and whips, you're going to have the silent laptop man kind of following behind in a trap. To measure it all. Whereas you don't now, it won't make much of a difference to your whip having a chip in it measuring pressure. It sounds like you don't want to measure the impact of the whip.
No.
Which is not very impressive.
You know how it's mad now to think of the idea that you would be sitting in a restaurant and somebody would start smoking next to you.
Of course, absolutely.
And you think that's insane. But we remember that. We fully remember that.
Yeah.
And I always think that it was normal. There's certain sports and things in sport that once they stop doing them, it will sound mad to younger generations that they even did it. And I do think the horse racing and thrashing them and making them jump over things and shooting them in front of it, shooting in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
I do think that will eventually not be allowed anymore, and people will go, I can't believe people did that, because it's just gambling. So you could just use robots or computers or something. It doesn't matter, does it? As long as it's randomised. Anyway, so there's a company in Istanbul called Whip Chip who make these, but there's no indication on their website as to whether they're actually used anywhere, or whether it's whether they're still trying to get them used. But David Muir did secure the use of shock absorbing whips, and they've been mandatory since 2003. So that's a good thing.
Fair play. Yeah, absolutely.
And weirdly, but some weird coincidence, the British Horse Racing Authority or Association, don't know what the A stands for, either of those two things, they look at their rules every 10 years. And it was just 10 years ago that they introduced the most recent rules. So they're doing a consultation at the moment on whether they should, change whipping or things like that. So it may change soon. I mean, it probably depends how many backhanders the various people involved have taken from the gambling industry.
Now, by 2010, it's estimated that 221 million people in the world will have some form of diabetes. It's a global problem which is getting worse, and it means that sufferers are unable to process the sugar in their blood. In severe cases, diabetes can lead to blindness, amputations, and reduced life expectancy. Recently, 4 teenagers have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which previously has affected only adults. Type 2 is the most preventable form of diabetes, but sadly it seems to be on the increase. Doctors blame sedentary lifestyles and diets high in sugar and fats. And now they're warning that the precursor to type 2 diabetes is appearing in early childhood.
School children are facing a health crisis.
In the next generation, 10% of our children will be diabetic. That's 1 in 10 of every child watching this programme during his lifetime or her lifetime will become diabetic.
A pioneering new study in Plymouth could help to stop this epidemic from growing, with the help of 6-year-old Molly. She is one of 300 healthy children taking part in the study. Every 6 months from now until she is 16, she will have tests to find out what's going on in her body.
What we're trying to do with the early bird study is to find out why children are developing diabetes so early and what impact it has on their health. These 300 children who've been recruited are asked up to the Department of Child Health here at Derriford Hospital, and during the course of an hour or two they go through a very detailed health MOT, if you like.
I have a new theory about this episode, Russell. Earlier, I from nowhere, I merely posited the idea that somehow Tomorrow's World, no, the BBC prop department were bullying Roger Black. And the same segment, we discussed how Khalil had been kind of woefully let down by them placing him on Supergrand's Lazy Boy. And then we saw Kay Humble obviously be, perhaps not unreasonably upset by a piece in which a rather defensive, taciturn jockey comes along who has no problem whatsoever whipping animals in front of a woman who does have a problem with that. And now we have the case of, what's his name? Terry
Wilkin.
Professor Terry Wilkin, who is betrayed by the people who interviewed him.
Either that or his own guilt.
He is so let down by... So this whole piece is about a longevity study into childhood. It's measuring children to work out, when diabetes becomes an issue and if it becomes an issue. And because there was a shocking headline that a couple of kids have been found out to have had type 2 diabetes. I'm sure there's not a child in London who hasn't got type 2 diabetes now.
Yeah.
But back in 2002, this is news that they had, because it's the more severe form, and it's the one that basically comes from lifestyle and diet. So this longevity study, this mistakenly titled Early Bird study, is investigating a sample of children to measure them and work out, how maybe some of the root causes of diabetes, type 2 diabetes later in life. And they're already landing on the idea of maybe kids having a sedentary lifestyle. And, it's interesting. But, Jesus, the way they interviewed this poor man, extreme close-up, fact.
Dutch angle,
fact. Absolutely no makeup, fact.
Plenty of sweat.
Non-LED lights, fact. Sweaty face.
Clammy.
Sweaty, greasy, clammy face. Sibilant voice, highly sibilant voice, and a wet mouth, which is all the more obvious because of the extreme close-up.
Yeah.
Poor, maybe almost deliberate attempts by the audio department to emphasize the sibilance. Unfortunately, he comes across as being slightly creepy. And it's not helped by them showing you the experiments they do in these poor kids, which are really invasive and actually quite chilling to watch. This whole thing is just bizarrely presented.
I feel like you're casting aspersions at the good name of Dr. Terry Wilkin, Mark.
For you listening at home, so here I'm very empathetic, and I think he's been really let down. Professor Terry, he's been really let down. And I wrote that in my note. I promise you, I wrote that in my note. I said he was just been so sorely let down. Here's what Russell wrote about exactly the same thing. You skirted around the subject, Mom, but let's be clear. This man is a weapons-grade nonce. Now, you have no evidence for this. I have no evidence. What I was saying is that I think he probably does not come across the way he expected to, and that is not his fault. You, on the other hand, see latent, sly, winking usury.
I'm comfortable with this, Marky. The man died on the 1st of March 2017, so
okay,
I can libel him as much as I like.
Yeah, okay.
And if it walks like a nonce and quacks like a nonce.
I think that's grossly unfair.
The man's doing good work. I mean, it is kind of weird because it's not like we or even many generations before. I would say from like the 70s, anybody who was a kid in the 70s onwards, where all children have absolutely atrocious diets, like sweeties and chocolate bars and bags of crisps and all that. You know, have always been the case.
Yeah.
So it is kind of weird how like kids' diabetes levels have just gone up so much in recent years. I suppose so. It is, you know, an interesting thing to try and get to the root cause of, I guess. So this study was completed before he died. What he discovered to be the case is that everybody always assumed that when you become a teenager, because you're growing, you use more calories because the calories will be put to use, you know, building bones or whatever.
Growing, yeah.
But apparently it's not the case. Actually, when you become a teenager, you use fewer calories. And this was like the big discovery of his study. But I don't think they know why really yet. It might, I guess, teenagers sit around a lot. I don't know. But yeah, a 15-year-old uses 500 fewer calories per day than a 10-year-old. So yeah, so that was the outcome of his study. But yeah, there is some I don't know. There's some odd imagery in this. The Dutch angles are truly insane. Like there's a bit where the little girl, I can't remember her name, but she runs into a room and sits on a chair, and she's at like nearly 90-degree angle to the camera.
She's hanging on for dear life.
Yeah. Whenever I see these like extreme Dutch angles, it always makes me think of the old 1960s Batman. I've probably mentioned this before, but whenever they have the fight scenes in the 1960s Batman, they always used to spin the camera into a like that, and it just that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. The little girl was Molly. And you rightly say here. I'd love it if Molly fell off her chair, demonstrate that this isn't a Dutch angle at all, but instead a classroom on board a ship in a storm. No, but I have to say, like the whole experiments that they were doing on poor Molly, like she seemed to be loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talked about the Buzz Lightyear thing, but basically they're putting them in like this kind of, I'm exaggerating, but they're putting this like this hyperbolic chamber, and there's a whole one where like she's kind of laying down, and this kind of machine is just kind of scanning all over her. It's it can be very. It didn't look very pleasant, but.
And then you've got the old Radiohead music over the top of the what's it called? Is it No Surprises? Is it
No
called?
Surprises. Yeah.
Which
which I love.
In some respects, is quite childlike in its.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Which I guess is why they chose it, but it's also slightly sinister, or like maybe not sinister, but sort of like I don't know. It's not fun childlike. It's sort of there's a darkness to it, I think.
Going with my new pet theory, this entire episode of Tomorrow's World is designed to bully and shame everyone who's involved. Do you think they deliberately chose a song that sings about no alarms and no surprises to somehow imply that Terry Wilkins' experiment is a waste of time? Or am I reading too much into it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Bastards. It's funny how this episode seems even worse now to us than it did in the last time it recorded this podcast.
Maybe we should just
now it's nefarious. Before it was bad television, like shockingly bad television. Now I think it might be evil.
It's truly cursed. Oh yeah, I might probably. I'll mention this on air now. Actually,
yeah, you should do actually because I even sent you a message saying this episode is cursed.
Yeah, just prior to us discussing this segment. My Zoom completely collapsed and my laptop stopped connecting to the internet for about 5 minutes, which has never happened to me ever before. So, yeah, there's God bless you, Mom, but please let us finish this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is a piano with an electronic display where you normally put your sheet music. But it's not just for effect or convenience. It will actually allow you to download a piece of music from the internet onto a disc just like this one. You pop it into the piano and, hey presto, the music will appear before your very eyes. Now, I'm no pianist, so we've invited someone who can really make these keys hum. It's Mylene from Hearside. Hello, how you doing?
Very good, and you?
Now, very well. Now, unlike many pop stars, you're actually classically trained in the piano, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I studied since I was about 4. And then I went to the Guildhall and the Royal Academy, so I've been studying for a while.
Well, let's see how good you really are, because what we've actually done, we've programmed Mozart's Piano Sonata in C major. It's in there. Off you go. Well, there you go. Obviously works works well. Now, for those of us not as accomplished as Mylene, the piano also displays finger positions and it will transcribe the notes as you compose your own music. So, Mylene, what do you make of this?
Oh, I think it's absolutely brilliant. The way that it's put together, if you're an accomplished pianist, then you've got sort of like a backing track, an orchestral movement behind it. And if you're just learning, then it prints out the music
and
for you.
And if you want to compose, it must be a great tool.
Absolutely. Just put your disc in and play away, and it prints it out. You don't need to bother with computers or notating the actual music. You just can hand your disc in to the producer.
OK, well, simple as that. Now, can you play us out for the rest of the show? OK.
Well, that's it for now. Next week, we'll be demonstrating the sensor that monitors your heart activity without making contact with your body.
And we'll be reporting on the breeding success of the rare kakapo parrot.
We'll see you at the same time next Wednesday.
Goodbye.
I just realised I zoned out then. I was replying to a text and then I just looked up and realised the programme had ended.
Do you want to rewatch that segment, Russ?
Absolutely not, no.
We've watched it 3 times before.
Yeah, as I've just stopped this screen here, I just want to mention that the current series producer is Sally Dixon, who we last saw running away from Stableford's gantry in the last episode in the tracking devices thing.
She had no care for her, one of her lead presenters back in that episode, and now she merely has no care for the entire show.
No, it's almost a shame that Stableford's fire wasn't real, to be honest, if you ask me.
A lot of work, a lot of weight being lifted by the word almost there. Well done.
We already mentioned at the beginning, didn't we?
We were teased.
I think the number one issue with this is that it's in reverse. The segment's been reverse engineered. We don't really learn anything about the piano, and it doesn't seem like I don't think it's a new invention. I think they've been these sort of things have been available on computers since the 80s, and self-playing pianos have been available since the Victorian times. So what it strikes me as being is that obviously Mylene Klass was she still in hearsay at this point. So she's new on the block, and they must have somehow been able to get hold of her. Possibly, maybe she was just hanging out in the Top of the Pops Star Bar with her lawyer.
Yeah, obviously she was. Yeah, with her lawyer.
And then they've gone, let's get Mylene on the show because every show needs a celebrity these days to get people to watch it. And then they've gone, what's the famous thing about Mylene? And I remember even at the time, the thing they used to bang on about Mylene relentlessly was that she was a classically trained pianist, as if the idea that a pop star who can play an instrument is somehow an amazing new fact.
A unique fact,
yeah. So they've gone, she's a pianist, or as obviously Roger Black says, pianist.
Now I'm no penis.
So they've gone, okay, let's look for whatever piano invention we can find, and this is what they found, and dragged it into the studio for this awkward, uninformative, crappy end of the show segment.
And we should emphasise that has nothing to do with Mylene Klass.
No.
No, she, I'm imagining, when she signed up to this, did not know she was wasting her time at all, and that she was basically a trinket or a bauble to decorate the end of the episode. The closest thing they get to in terms of justifying this piece is this episode is 2002. This is with the exception of reading out some URLs or the Top of the Pops URL in the background of the Star Bar. This is the very first and only mention of the internet as a thing. They seem to be hanging this whole segment on the fact that this particular piano allows you to download music from the internet, which is untrue. It doesn't. It allows you to insert a disc.
A floppy disk, no less.
A floppy disk, which, as you rightly pointed last time, Russ, because I had one, I had an Atari ST.
Yeah.
And people were using Atari STs to make music.
Yeah.
At this point now, close on between 10 and 15 years. Some people still use them.
Yeah.
And they use 3.5-inch floppies. So this It's actually a bit of a lie. It does not download music from the internet. It allows you to upload music from a floppy disk that you may well have downloaded elsewhere, which I think just merely slots into your point of view, which is that this piano has been on the market for a while, and they've as you say, reverse engineered it to bring Marlene Klass along. She doesn't know that. She's a trooper. She's full of enthusiasm, but at this point, they all want the program to end. And speaking of ending, like the ending is really, really colossally creepy.
When they all gather around the old Joanna.
Yeah, and like lean and leer over her as she plays a tune I don't recognise. It certainly isn't in Tomorrow's World.
No, yeah, that would be the sensible thing to do, is to knock out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think probably the best thing for her to have done would to be play the original '60s Tomorrow's World.
Oh, that would have been
I don't know if you
fabulous.
could play that on the piano though. I don't know, but
in my head I was playing it, and of course I was actually playing the music from 2001: Space Odyssey. So there's our Kubrick reference and a nice, nice.
Yet another black mark against this episode. No,
not a single Kubrick reference. No, first episode we come across that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
and I promise you, we looked.
Yeah, but there's once again, there's no demonstration exactly of how the machine works.
Yeah, no, not at all.
He waves a floppy disk in the air and says some vague things about downloading music, and then she just starts playing it. But there's no you don't get like an idea of.
If memory serves me correct, she mentions the fact that you can write music.
Yes,
that you can compose. They don't even show that. That would be the obvious thing to show.
Yeah.
But they don't show that.
No, because the whole point of this segment is nothing to do with. The only reason they got this is because Mylene's there. That's all they want.
Yeah.
So just show Mylene playing a piano. They're happy. Us at home, we can go and whistle in the wind, or whatever the saying is.
Well, no, they're assuming we'll be happy because we've seen a celeb. Yeah. And then they make her play at the end, and it really is like they go to dance monkey dance. Like it's just like, okay, well, entertain us now. In many ways, Russ, it is a fitting end to this particular episode. It is desperately unsatisfying, and it is confusing and inexplicable.
Yeah, you've got to admire their consistency.
Absolutely. Well done, Sally. Well done, Tina. No, absolutely. They nailed it. If this is what they were going for, my God, they achieved beyond their wildest dreams. I like to think that they weren't going for this. Yeah, it's just, do you know what? Actually, it has been really interesting talking about this for the second time. And because my memory, because we're about to go into the audit. My memory last time was that we really wanted to stop talking about this episode. And I think we were actually kind of angry and upset. And so the last audit had not venom, but it was a bit cursory. Whereas this time round, I feel like I've been to therapy about this. I feel like I've
exorcised the demons.
Yeah, I really do. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still angry about quite a lot of what we've seen. Actually, both you and I think actually the segment about A Day in the Life, I was more angry than last time, and I was angry last time at that segment. So, it definitely pushed some buttons. But this time round, I don't know, maybe it's the confidence of knowing I'll never have to think about it ever again. But I found myself.
You don't know, Mark. We've not played this recording back.
No.
There could be something going wrong.
For reference, Russell's microphone is attached right to his chest, so no good can come of this.
For the sake of completion, I will tell you about this piano.
Oh yeah,
it's called the Roland Digiscore, and you can still buy them. They cost you a couple of grand, so they're pretty decent bits of kit. Now they use USB ports instead of floppy disks. And the thing that I was interested by was the fact that this is a digital piano, which is different from an electric piano, which is different from an electronic piano. So I think that what I could work out was that the electronic piano is the first one, and that uses analog circuitry, and then the synthesized electric piano came along, which uses a synthesizer. But this one that Mylene's playing is a digital piano, and I've got lost now.
I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
No, my notes don't make any sense either. Well, okay, but there definitely is a difference between an electric piano, electronic piano, and a digital piano. And this is a digital piano. That's all I can tell you, Mark.
Okay, brilliant.
I've gone to pieces just like the programme.
Then that's a fitting end.
But in her favour, Mylene Klass is a keen amateur astronomer.
Oh, yeah.
So, maybe they should have got her to do the comet section. She probably would have known how to hold a camera. Yeah, and so already fair play to Mylene. No problems with her. Although she did once get in trouble with the police for waving a knife at some teenagers. That's my Mylene facts. Yeah. Anything else? No, I think that's it, isn't it?
No, I think that's it. I think we've only got one thing left to do.
One thing left to do.
You ready? Okay, I mean, literally, if we don't do it, this whole thing has been a colossal waste.
Crack open that ledger, Mark. Crack open that ledger. Get your quill and your ink out.
Let me just blow the dust up.
Your wax seal.
So we start where we always start. We start with the year in context, 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Cinema box office.
Cinema box office.
Around, was it 3rd of April 2002? So roughly, what is the cinema box office?
So I'm gonna go.
Plenty of people listening would have been to the cinema this week.
So I'm going for the weekend of the 29th to the 31st. So Queen Mother.
Perfect. The weekend before.
Queen Mother could conceivably have seen these films.
That's a way of putting it. Whereas in my head, I'm thinking like, there's nothing on TV because the Queen Mother's dying. Let's go to the cinema.
It's a top 15. I think it's worth doing the 15 because there's a couple of good ones in there. So
we have time to kill Russ.
What else would you be doing? Number 15 is The Count of Monte Cristo, starring Jim Caviezel, Guy Pearce, and Richard Harris. Yeah. Number 14, and this always annoys me, 13 Ghosts. And the thing that annoys me is that there was a period around this time where they would replace the letter in a word with a number that didn't even look anything like the letters. And in this case, it's actually 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
No, none whatsoever.
No.
Don't think I've ever seen that.
13
actually.
Ghosts. No, I remember being out. But
at number 13 is Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius.
Okay.
Number 12, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Ooh.
Which, the old box office is absolutely huge for that. Number 11, Monsters, Inc.
Wow. Okay.
Number 10, Return to Neverland. Number 9, The Royal Tenenbaums.
I haven't seen that already.
Whenever I see Gene Hackman's name, I always think, I wish he was still acting. Probably one of my favourite ever actors, Gene Hackman. Never done a bad performance, has he?
He's really good in that. Has he ever done a bad performance? No, I don't.
Even Superman 4, he's decent.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like he's been in bad films, but he's always good in them. He's always, as a minimum, he's always Gene Hackman in them. Yeah, which is, incredible. No, I mean, he's one of those people who kind of rather classily just said, no, I'm retiring, and then retired.
Yeah.
And not because they were in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah, we can all retire after that, Sean.
Number 8, Gosford Park. Number 7, E.T. the Extraterrestrial reissue, 20th anniversary. Number 6, A Beautiful Mind. Number 5, Ocean's 11.
Yep.
Number 4, Britney Spears in Crossroads. Number 3, Ali G in the House.
Oh, God's sakes!
I don't think I've ever seen that actually.
No, I've seen bits of it.
I find that type of humour very hard to watch. I remember we went. What did we go and see? We went to see Borat, didn't we?
We did.
And although I find it funny, I also find it excruciating. And so I end up like trying to make myself really small and sweating.
Yeah.
At the embarrassment of other people.
But I think if either of us could have pressed pause and walked away, we've done it several times.
Yeah. Number 2, Ice Age, and number 1, Blade 2.
Cool.
I like a Blade film.
Yeah.
I just like Wesley Snipes. I think he's a good. It's a shame he got done for taxes or whatever. I always found him he's very likable.
I don't think he was guilty, Russ. He was guilty.
Presence on film, I find him.
I feel like we saw this in the cinema, you and I, but
quite possibly.
And it was good. It was enjoyable. All right. I mean, I suppose that's classic kind of post-Christmas, pre-summer mix of Oscar fare and schlock. Brilliant. All right. The ledger. Hang on a minute. Pop chart.
Yeah, Pop Chart is about as good as Pop Chart's about as good as this episode.
I'm leaning in.
Right, number 10. Yeah, Something by Lasgo. Never heard of that, have you?
Never heard of it. No.
Number 9, Fly By 2 by Blue. Number 8, Tainted Love by Marilyn Manson.
Ugh, okay.
Number 7, Shake Your Body by Shy FX and T-Power featuring Die. Number 6, How You Remind Me by Nickelback, everyone's favourite.
Oh, wow.
Number 5, For My People by Missy Elliott. Number 4, Anything Is Possible, / Evergreen by Will Young.
Okay.
Number 3, Whenever, Wherever by Shakira. Her breasts are small and humble, so don't confuse her with the mountains. Number 2, Me Julie by Ali G and Shaggy.
Oh my God. Okay.
Surely Ali G and Shaggy has got to be the most of this period team up of anything, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then at number 1, Gareth Gates with Unchained Melody.
Wow. Okay. So we are in a post pop stars world then, because that's Pop Idol, isn't it?
Yeah. So you got two Pop Idol people in there.
God, talk about dragging us back to a period in time.
Oh yeah, that's pretty bleak, isn't it?
It's gonna be weird because, like, obviously you and I were actually buying things back then, and but it is still nearly 20 years ago. So prices of milk, beer, petrol.
Let's buy a house first. Put everything in it.
All right, fine. Don't listen to I buy the logic. Go on.
£171,000. That's in London as well.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's a London price, yeah.
The average salary is 17,953.
Okay.
Average car 13,100.
Cars always sound so expensive. Like, surely, well, I suppose it's the average price. Like, you can get cars for
because only absolute mugs buy brand new cars because there's literally no point. Because they're repairable and they massively depreciate in price as soon as you get in one. So just buy a second-hand car. That's my bit of consumer advice for this episode, Mark. Always buy a second-hand car, but you can't even drive, can you?
No, I can't.
Of course you can't. You
big what?
Nothing.
Go on, finish
that. Price of a litre of petrol, 79p, which in today's money is £1.18, so it hasn't moved whatsoever. Pint of milk, £1.44, which in today's money is £2.15, which is eye-watering. I'm amazed milk ever took off as a product, if that's how much it cost. Pint of beer in 2002. Oh, I could even do a month. Bloody hell.
Oh, well, okay.
So, April 2002, £2.08. Pint of lager, draft lager.
Okay, that's the year in context. So now we're going to look at the episode, and I think we're doing this with a bit more enthusiasm than the last time. So that's got to be good.
Well, also last time, you probably didn't see this, but the last time the Queen Mother was absolutely rinsing my Zoom. So I
didn't see that.
I could barely hear anything you were saying.
That's right. Yeah.
So I found it very hard to respond to what you were saying. Whereas
you were half looking forward to listening to the episode so you could hear
exactly.
What I said.
Yeah. So, but this time you're coming through loud and clear.
Fabulous. Okay.
So
most important invention.
It's got to be the fire hose, isn't it?
It has to be the fire hose. Yeah, 100% fire hose. I think we both agreed last time as well. Like the actual study into diabetes, that was good. You know, that it's important. But in terms of an invention, you know, the fire hose literally saves lives and actually delivered on its promise. And as you told us earlier, is used
and genuinely impressive. 10 litres of water.
And as opposed to hundreds, quote unquote, hundreds that other people use. Yeah. Most worthless invention. Well,
I mean, the set.
This new approach to tomorrow's world.
I mean, I guess maybe the whip. I've got one thing against the whip, but I mean, it's not been used.
But then you said didn't they start rolling it out from 2003? Not the chip.
Not the
Here's
chip
the thing,
whip.
which whip?
Exactly.
There's the chip whip, and then there was the shock absorber whip, and the shock absorber whip they did.
That has been used.
Chip whip has gone nowhere.
No.
And here's the thing, actually. Also, by the way, shout out to Rob Adams. Your hand glove metal detector, perfectly fine invention. Well done.
Yeah.
A lot of this episode is not about inventions.
No.
So I'm going to go with the digi piano / electric piano / electronic piano, not because it's not a bad invention, but because it's not new and it is being used to crowbar in a celebrity site.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm going to emphasize the word worthless rather than the word invention.
All right, yeah. I'll go with that, Mark. I'll go with that.
You go with that?
I will go with
that,
yeah.
Most inaccurate prediction of the future.
Mick Fitzgerald winning the Grand National.
I like it. It's a tough one.
It's tough. It's when you've got such poor quality raw materials. It's quite hard to come up with a.
But also tell me which one of these segments actually give us some kind of prediction or hope for the future. Any of them? You know, I'm looking back at my notes here. Don't see anything.
No.
To me, that's a zip, a zero, zilch. You know. All right. Worst screw up by a presenter.
Well,
I'm in two minds here.
But
you go first.
I enjoy Roger Black referring to himself as a penis.
Yeah. No, he doesn't. He says he's no penis.
Oh, he's no penis. Sorry, yeah.
He's the opposite.
I think there's a couple of quite amusing stumbles with what they're saying. I think Adam-Hart Davis says schlass at one point instead of slash. Kate Humble's entire presentation of the whip section is.
See, I thought you were going to say that.
Is, you know,
and that's why I'm in two minds, because like I agree and I disagree. Like I agree that, you know, screw up may be the wrong word, but it's, I suppose ultimately it's her responsibility to keep that show on the road. And it's actually David from the RSPCA is the one who tries his best. So I agree with you in that front. At the same time, I think there are mitigating circumstances, and I think this, like normally we would pick, you know, a mush mouth bit of like schlass, or we both think Roger Black refers to Royal London Hospital as Royal London like hospital or something like that.
I think, yeah,
hospital. But they really, and either one of those would win in a different episode. But in this particular one, I don't know. I can't disagree with you, but I think it's really unfair. So frankly, I think the worst screw up is. Do you know what? Normally we don't focus on the backstage people, but this is about the producer and the editor of this show.
Yeah. The worst screw up is whoever allowed that Comet video diary to even reach the screen.
Yeah. Let's stick to that then. Or we say that Dr. Francisco is the best presenter.
Yeah.
Best attempt at making something boring interesting. Now the key word here is best. There's many attempts. Yeah. But there are very few successful ones. No, sorry. It's Super Grand's Lazy Boy. If that's what they meant to do, I think they nailed that spectacularly.
Yeah.
Best use of music? Well, it's got to be Radiohead.
It's Radiohead, yeah.
I mean, it kind of works.
When we first watched this episode, like 3 month ago, whenever it was, that refrain. That's what it's called, isn't it? A refrain, isn't it? I know so little about music. I'm not sure, but anyway, whatever that ding, ding, that repeated in my head for days afterwards.
Lucky boy.
Yeah.
Did we see anything in the episode that made it into the future? Well, thanks to your research, we know that the metal detector did.
Metal detector did. The fire hose did. Yeah, the piano did.
Yeah.
The diabetes study finished successfully.
Yeah.
You
can still get those pianos.
The whip. One of the whips did. So I mean, in terms of like success, it's a pretty, you know.
I got to counter you. I see you going, and I respect it, but I got to counter you. Does that maybe not reflect a lack of ambition?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The fact that basically everything makes it in means that they were totally playing it safe. And actually, one of the joys of watching older episodes is when they, with absolute confidence, talk about something that we know for a fact goes nowhere.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen here because, you know, there's no ambition maybe.
They're all finished products that are already being used.
Exactly. And you reminded me something Josie said when she watched the episode with me 4 years ago, which is that this feels more like the gadget show than Tomorrow's World. These are products you can buy rather than technology on which products you can buy will be based, which is kind of what Tomorrow's World always did.
Yeah.
They were showing you something, and then they were telling you about something you will be able to get down the line and how it might improve your life, whereas this is just selling you things that you can get. Now, obviously, I can't buy a cold-cut Cobra, but, you know, somebody can. Somebody did.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really good observation, because I didn't spot that. It was only when she said it, was like, oh, that's absolutely true. They're just... It is like they're broadcasting live from Maplins. What does this episode tell us about the 3rd of April 2002?
Well, if I was gonna base my knowledge of 2002 on watching this episode, I would imagine 2002 was an absolute shit show. But funny enough, I mean, I didn't really enjoy the year 2002. It wasn't a very good year for me. So this does pan out.
Yeah.
as being a
It's a bit of a nothing year for me. So we weren't watching this program, and I think I've said this before about a different episode, but actually it might have been the 1996 one. This tells us less about the year and more about the program. Again, previously when we discussed, this question is here because actually you get to genuinely order the episode and work out, how does it fit in? How are people feeling? What were they presenting? Is there a sense of, like the 1981 episode, which is really negative? It is really negative. Like, we're not making that up. I mean, obviously it's now more negative in our minds than anything we've ever seen, but it is quite negative. And there is a sense of Britain being on the decline. But in previous episodes that we've watched either side of 1981, you get a sense of the optimism that you and I liked about Tomorrow's World. But this doesn't say anything. Well, I mean, that's not true. I mean, it tells us about the invasion of celebrities into television, and it tells us about the production of this program, full stop, and where it sits in the priorities for the BBC, and how both of those it's completely slipped away.
And it just feels like it's being made. The people who are making it do not care for the subject matter. I feel like, in the older episodes that we've watched, everybody involved is genuinely interested in the subject matter, is trying to present it as best they can for an audience. And in this, it's basically just slap it out, get it on screen. Don't make it too difficult because the people at home are idiots. It's just a real contempt for the audience, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I know we were slagging off Sally Dixon and Tina Fletcher earlier. I'm sure they were trying their hardest and doing a fair job. And who knows, maybe this improves as it goes along, or maybe this was a blip. But at the heart is a program that has colossally lost its way, and that's because it's lost its whole reason, to my mind, to my eyes. And luckily, it'll be a while, I think, before we revisit this period. But unfortunately, I think we should revisit.
I'm going to try. Mark my words, Mark. I'm going to try and track down episodes from as many different other times as possible before we get round back to this one.
Yeah, well, when we randomly select some event in history, I'm sure it'll be randomly not 2002 or 2001. I think it's time to look at a different era again. Yeah, ultimately, I mean, hey, look, we've had fun, and that was painful actually, because at the heart of it is we do enjoy. We do enjoy what we're doing here. We do enjoy these podcasts, but we do enjoy watching these old episodes of Tomorrow's World. I mean, we have to, because we have to watch them 3 times to do this podcast properly.
Yeah.
But this was painful. This was a painful watch. It felt like a real chore the first 3 times, and then this 4th time felt like a punishment.
Yeah, I mean, there are genuinely times where I either felt uncomfortable or genuinely annoyed, which none of the other episodes have ever done. And the most negative emotion I've had from previous episodes is purely boredom, and that's only been the occasional. Normally Michael Rod's involved, but it's only been the occasional section in that vein. But yeah, this was another level of execrable nonsense.
Well, we've done the audit, Russ, and I feel very, very comfortable closing the ledger in this particular episode.
Please do, Mark. Close it, padlock it,
seal it, bury it,
send it to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Right, so Mark, I hope that episode has come out well. I don't know about you, but I really could murder a drink. And also, I think I need to consult my lawyer about all of those nonce comments I made earlier. So just going to pop down the old BBC Star Bar if you want to join me there.
Oh, God, do I ever.
All right, okay. First drink's on you. Oh, no, hang on. Let's have a whip.
Oh, very good.
That's a good joke, isn't it? See,
that was a good joke.
That's one of the listeners. That's one of the 3 original jokes that was in this episode that we didn't just repeat for the last one and pretend. Okie dokie. Till next time, where I promise we will have a better thing to talk about. Goodbye, Mark.
Bye, Russ. Take care.
And everybody at home, I will see you tomorrow. Ta-ta.
Bye.